Chapter 988. The Divine Throne had come up with a plan to replace the Fate Tao mark to break the order of fate. Since this group of people didn't need to worry about their own lives because of the Fate Tao mark, they would naturally confess as long as their confidence was broken. The leader of the Black Shadow Men was bewildered. He didn't doubt the Divine Throne's words at all. Based on the powerful divinity that the Divine Throne gave off, the leader of the Black Shadow Men was well aware that he wasn't its match. Although they had been strengthened by the Fate Tao mark and their strength had increased tremendously, allowing them to fight above their level, what kind of divine throne was this? We were all wronged and buried for hundreds of years back then. It wasn't easy for us to revive, and we just want to serve our master and live well. Please don't cut off our path to survival. The leader of the Black Shadow Men pleaded bitterly after struggling in his heart. Very well. The Divine Throne chuckled. Then let's talk about the mastermind behind this plan. Who is it? This person's surname is Bai, and his name is Bai Yuquan. He's our direct superior. We have no right to meet anyone of higher rank, the leader of the Black Shadow Men said. Bai Yuquan? Wang Ming thought the name was a little familiar. He frowned. I remember when Bai Zhou was arrested, didn't he have a son called Bai Yuquan? This was his illegitimate child, but he died at a young age. According to Bai Zhou's own account, when he raised his son, he often used him as a dumbbell to train his muscles. One time, he accidentally broke his arm. Plus, his spirit qi is yin, and when it entered his body, it directly froze this child who was only a few months old to death. Everyone was astonished. No one had expected this kind of operation. As for why Bai Yuquan could be resurrected, after understanding the characteristics of Fate Tao, no one had any doubts. Someone who had been dead for hundreds of years could be resurrected, to say nothing of Bai Zhe's child. In addition, with Wang Ming's strange dream earlier, they could now confirm that the resurrection of President Bai Zhe and Devil Gut Fungus Lord was probably true. Then who was the mastermind behind the scenes? Was it that white-haired youngster who looked exactly like Wang Ling? Now that the matter of resurrection in the dream had been verified, Wang Ming's heart couldn't help trembling. Who on earth was imitating Wang Ling's face? He felt that he needed an answer. What's your name? Who were you before you were resurrected? What did you do? The Divine Throne continued to ask. I am Yu Zhong. I was a foreigner before I was resurrected. I later joined a foreign mercenary group. I died in a war between mercenaries. A mercenary war? Yes, in foreign countries, battles between cultivator mercenaries are common. These mercenaries were mainly rogue cultivators. Most of the rogue cultivators who joined the mercenary group did so voluntarily. Most of them were forced to join because they had no other choice but to do so. Many people were tricked into joining. They wanted to make a quick buck, but after joining, they realized that it was actually very difficult to get out. Although they made a lot of money, they didn't dare to spend it in many cases, the leader of the shadowy figures called Yu Zhong said honestly. Hearing this, Wang Ling and the others nodded. The history of cultivation mercenaries was more complicated, and Wang Ling still remembered Old Antique's explanation of foreign history in history class. In many cases, the so-called cultivation mercenary organizations were established in secret. They didn't work for any country and only worked for their own organizations. Any country could secretly hire them and entrust them with some confidential work. Mercenary organizations didn't have a position. If there was a conflict over a mission, they would only work for the side with the higher price. As for these rogue cultivators who didn't have a position, most of them were unregistered. Apart from themselves, there was no other information on their identities. So after this group of people died, there was no way to trace their identities. It seems that the situation is very clear. Guoping said, I'm afraid most of these shadowy figures were rogue cultivator mercenaries from 100 years ago. We can't trace their identities, even if our children know their names now. That's it. Wang Ming nodded and looked at the leader of the shadowy figures in front of him. He took out an electronic map and put it in front of the leader. Now, I need you to point out the location of your base. The base is in the Palace of Mirrors. I can't point out the location on this map of yours. But I can point you to the entrance. After saying that, Yu Zhong pointed to a location on the map and then pleaded, "But please, don't exchange our butts." "Don't worry," Wang Ming said. At this point, the interrogation was over. Star-Lord saw Wang Ling and the others off in front of Star-Lord Palace. Before leaving, Wang Ming asked the Divine Throne curiously, "Can swapping butts really break the fate Dao mark?" "Of course not. I don't know how to break it, so I just casually said it to scare him," the Divine Throne replied. Everyone. Roughly 10 minutes later, they appeared at the entrance to a secret alley in the Palace of Brocade. Wang Ming had made ample preparations, and had brought Wang Ling 2 and Wang Ling 1 with him. He was wearing the newly developed number 2, while Guoping was wearing the number 1 metal suit. Both of them were now equipped with combat strength. There were guards at the mouth of the alley. In order to avoid alerting the enemy, Wang Ling used his king's eye to cover the scene again, so that all the guards here could see the scene from an hour ago. This move could be said to be stealthy, and it was much better than invisibility spells. The leader of the Black Shadow Men wasn't lying. As soon as Wang Ling and the others entered the alley, they noticed the mouth on the wall. "How do we get in?" Guoping asked. Wang Ming used the deduction spell to think of all kinds of possibilities, then said, "You have to put your hand in the mouth and say the password. If it's wrong, your arm will be directly bitten off. But I haven't figured out what the password is for now. No need to go through so much trouble." At that moment, Wang Ling stepped forward. He reached out and touched the big mouth on the stone wall, then directly stabbed his hand in and directly pulled out a long red tongue. The stone mouth was caught off guard by Wang Ling's stab. It was too deep. This was a deep throat. The stab made its throat feel red and swollen. "Woo-woo." The stone mouth cried. It didn't have eyes, and tears flowed from its mouth. Wang Ling stared at the stone mouth, his expression as calm as an ancient well. "Let us in." The stone mouth. "Woo-woo, no, no." Wang Ling opened his dead fish eyes. "No, I'll beat you." Stone mouth. "I'll open." Chapter 989. After entering the Palace of Mirrors, Wang Ling and the others finally realized how strange this divine power was. They hadn't appeared at the mouth of an alley, but seemed to have been teleported to a random corner of the city. Furthermore, it wasn't just them, different people turned into light particles and gathered here at every moment. Some of these people were old, some were young. After appearing in this world, it was as if they had been bestowed with a new realm, and they actually took the initiative to walk in one direction. Among this vast crowd of people, there were quite a few people in white coats. "Isn't that old Chen?" Guoping spotted an acquaintance, but felt that something wasn't right, so he didn't step forward to stop the other party. "It looks like our guess is basically the same. These people might be people who died in the real world for various reasons, and sure enough, they were resurrected here." Wang Ming adjusted his armor and entered camouflage mode. In this mode, Wang Ling 1 and Wang Ling 2 would turn into what looked like human skin masks that would attach themselves to Wang Ming and Guoping for camouflage. This was a function that Wang Ling had come up with based on his great transfiguration spell, and after many experiments, Wang Ming had realized it. "Should we call him over and ask him about the situation?" Guoping stared at the back of the researcher surnamed Shen for a moment. He wanted to go forward and ask him about the situation, but before he could do so, the researcher in the white coat was immediately grabbed by several black shadows who had descended from the sky. This group of Black Shadow Men was exactly the same as the 5 people who had been caught previously. They were very skilled, and judging from their identities, they were probably the same untraceable cultivation mercenaries from 100 years ago. These people had also been resurrected after death, and then had sought refuge in this organization to become its most loyal subordinates. "What are you doing?" I want to register." The researcher surnamed Chen struggled. "Behave." The leader of the Black Shadow Men hit the researcher in the stomach, and he immediately fainted. There were busybodies nearby who were watching. "What are you doing?" "These people are criminals, and need to be put under special control." "Mind your own business, line up and go to the Dream House to register." The Black Shadow Man sneered. He then picked up the researcher, turned around, and disappeared into the air. The black shadows came and went as they pleased, leaving no trace behind. Clearly, they had received special orders to patrol the world and capture the researchers who had been resurrected and later arrived in the Palace of Mirrors. Admittedly, these researchers knew nothing about how they came to this world and how they died. Their memories had all been altered. This mode was a bit like a group of people entering a newbie village and being set to find a starting NPC to complete a specific quest. So what exactly was this dream house? Let's go take a look. Wang Ling and the others followed him. There were a lot of dream houses in this world for the purpose of registering people who had just returned to this world. Wang Ling followed the direction of the crowd and arrived at one of the houses. The nearby streets looked a little familiar. Dog 2 wagged its tail as it followed Wang Ling. Then, it broke out in a cold sweat at the sight of a statue in front of it. This was a statue of Dog 2 in its toad form. The location of the statue was exactly the same as the one near Central Street in Fang Xing's family's noodle shop, but the content was different. The original statue was of Odd Zhua stabbing it with a sword. But in the Palace of Mirrors, the content of the statue was of Odd Zhua being swallowed into its mouth. Is everything the opposite of the Palace of Mirrors? Wang Ming and the others were also astonished by this scene. No wonder the streets here felt a little familiar, but also a little different. The overall layout of the streets was the same, but the direction had changed. Some of the historical stories of the original world had also been altered to give completely different endings. Fang Xing's noodle shop had also changed its direction. The only difference was that the dream house that the black shadows had mentioned just now. This was a place that the mastermind behind the scenes of this world had set up to register all newcomers. The layout of the dream house was very simple. A person dressed in the same black shadow suit was typing in front of a computer to register people. Next to him stood 2 black shadow thugs who were responsible for maintaining order. Everyone who came to the dream house would be asked some questions in turn, and the black shadow man would then spin a roulette behind him. At first, Wang Ling and the others didn't understand what this roulette was for, but after seeing several people register, it suddenly dawned on them. Wang Ling and the others lined up at the back of the crowd, and a handsome boy stepped forward. Name, the black shadow man in charge of registration asked. Kai Yifan. The person in charge of registration entered the name into the computer for a query. Your name is Kai Yifan. You died because you loved playing basketball, but because you played too enchanting, people spurned you and turned you into a ghostly video. When you clicked on the ghostly video, your heart was affected by the frequency of the ghostly video, and your heartbeat inadvertently accelerated along with it until you finally died of excessive heartbeat. When the registrar said this, the young man seemed to remember something, and tears of grievance appeared in his eyes. Yes, it's like this, I remember now. Now it's time to decide your fate. Then, the registrar turned the roulette behind him, and the needle of the roulette finally stopped on a strange rune. Congratulations, it's the Tao of the human world. You can continue to live here as a human. The registrar smiled. Human, don't worry, this is a beautiful world. Everyone here takes pride in playing basketball, and your enchanting dance will be appreciated here. I hope you can live a good life here. My name is Mengpa, I wouldn't lie to you. Thank you. The young man showed a look of gratitude, but also a look of doubt. Since I'm already dead, is this heaven? You can think of it that way. Transactions in this world don't require money, and all resources are shared. As long as you want, you can get whatever you want, and do whatever you want. The registrar smiled mysteriously. Congratulations again, the chances of you turning over a new leaf are very low on the roulette. Looks like the 6 paths are written on this roulette. In the queue, Dog 2 said, Hell Path, Hungry Ghost Path, Animal Path, Human Path, Azura Path, and Underworld Path. Ever since the Heavenly Path became an independent path, the original Heavenly Path has been replaced by the Underworld Path. As soon as it finished speaking, a bespectacled, slightly bald, and knowledgeable old man walked up to it. Name? The black shadow man in charge of registration asked again. Chu Yixian, the old man said. I found it, you died of overwork. Mengpa looked at the screen and said. The old man recalled some of his experiences before he died, and immediately begged, I beg you, Mengpa, let me enter the Tao of the human world. I'm not talented, but I brought a gift for you. These are a few books that I personally wrote. Oh. Looks like you're a talented man. The registrar with the code name Mengpa smiled, and took a look at the old man's books. These books were 3 years of college entrance examination, 5 years of simulation, 1, 3 years of college entrance examination, 5 years of simulation, 2, 3 years of college entrance examination, 5 years of simulation, 3, take him away. Mengpa's face was kind and benevolent. Not turning the roulette anymore? The black shadow on the side asked. No more, directly send him to the animal path. Chapter 990. Congratulations, you're a member of the human Tao. The dream room registrar smiled at Wang Ling, then took out a red stamp and tapped it on the back of Wang Ling's hand. This was the mark of the dream room. Everyone who entered this world and completed their registration would receive such a badge as proof of their identity. Of course, Wang Ling and the others had hacked in, so the truth was that there was no record of them on the registrar's computer. But now that the dream room registrar was under control, it was a piece of cake for Wang Ling to do this. They didn't know where Feng Xing was now, so they could only infiltrate this organization to uncover the conspiracy behind it. Dog 2 also smoothly passed the verification, but Wang Ling didn't let the wheel stop on the human Tao. The dream room registrar gazed at Loopy Toad with a benevolent expression. Congratulations, Mr. Dog, you're still a beast in this life. Dog 2 didn't think there was anything wrong with what the registrar said, but it still sounded a little weird. Why was this guy scolding people? Wang Ling and the others' registration went smoothly, but just as they were about to leave, the 2 shadow thugs next to the registrar called out to them. You guys, wait up. The shadow thugs had a vigilant expression on their faces as they stared at Wang Ling and the others, feeling a little strange. How can dead people who come to this world form teams? How did you guys die? Wang Ming, we died in the Infinity War. Someone snapped their fingers and we died. The shadow man frowned. The Infinity War? He was a mercenary who had died hundreds of years ago, and when all was said and done, he was an ancient person, so he didn't understand what Wang Ming meant at all. He just felt that the name of this war sounded very awesome. Was it a battle that had taken place after his death? The shadow man didn't understand. At that moment, Guoping added something in the dumbfounded shadow man's ear. Guoping, long live Hydra. The shadow man was stunned on the spot. He didn't know what this Hydra was, but for some reason, these words seemed to have a strange magical power that actually made him slightly dazed after he heard them. Wang Ling, Dog 2, Wang Ling and the others got into the spirit car. Just as the dream woman in the dream room had said, all forms of transportation and everything else in this world didn't require money. Just by relying on the engraving on their hands, they could pass through. Perhaps to these dead people, this was indeed a perfect world, but the most terrifying thing was that most of their memories had been tampered with. Although they knew the cause of their deaths, they didn't know how they died. After coming to this world, although they became residents, they lived more like puppets at the mercy of others. They might start over here, work again, marry again, have children again. But Wang Ling realized that the people in this world lived aimlessly. Sitting in the spirit car, Wang Ling looked around at everyone, but unexpectedly no one had a smile on their faces. Is this really okay? Buttface asked as he stared in the direction of the shadowy thug after they had left the dream room. Don't worry. Wang Ming replied telepathically, these people have limited knowledge, and as mere thugs, it's very easy for them to be intimidated. However, we will only encounter one, so we should be careful. Wait, you can transmit messages? Buttface was surprised. You underestimate my 2 sets of armor too much. Wang Ming smiled. At that moment, Wang Ling too had already activated the brainwave transmission function, and could rely on brainwaves to set up a local area network for sound transmission, which would allow them to communicate directly without being discovered. Where are we going now? This world is already under the control of the mysterious organization. Of course we have to figure out where their nest is. I've already marked the researcher who was captured just now. We should be able to find clues about the other researchers, Wang Ming said confidently. The place they were now going to was a munitions factory in the northern suburbs of Songhai City. It had originally been the headquarters of Weapons Saint Minister Ku, one of the 10 generals. Now that so many researchers had been killed in the real world and brought back to this world, it was likely that the other party was plotting some huge, unspeakable conspiracy. Is this the place? After the spirit car stopped closest to the northern suburbs, Wang Ling and the others decided to walk there to avoid alerting the enemy. That was because on their way here, they had noticed that apart from the Black Shadow Men, there was no one else flying on a sword in the sky. Everyone was using ground transportation, which was the complete opposite of the real world. After the era of national cultivation, it was common for people to cross the road on a sword. As long as they didn't drink and drive, they wouldn't be punished. Then, Wang Ling opened his king's eye and used a pupil technique to cover the scene here. The scene was also fixed on an hour ago. The munitions factory was heavily guarded and desolate. One look was enough to tell that there was a huge secret inside. There were now many ways to detect invisibility, but fortunately with the power of the king's eye, it wouldn't be so easy for these people to discover them. As they approached the munitions factory, Wang Ling heard a conversation between several Black Shadow Men standing guard at the door. Bro, what on earth is being made inside? It looks like a magic staff, the insider replied. I escorted a man in a white coat inside just now to take a look. This magic staff looks a little strange. It's a pretty boy in suspenders holding a basketball, and the light from the magic staff shoots out directly from the basketball. It's pretty powerful. Pretty boy in basketball, could it be? You don't understand. This bro is now the symbol of peace in our palace of mirrors. Wang Ling and the others, this world was a little scary. Elsewhere in the real world, an emergency meeting was being held in the conference room of the 10 generals of Huaxiao Alliance. In the blink of an eye, an unknown Black Shadow organization had killed so many researchers, which shocked the top echelons of the world. The head of state appeared in a projection with an ugly expression on his face. Who can tell me what the hell is going on? This group of people is organized and planned, so they must have come prepared. Looking at the current situation, there is definitely a spy inside our research institute, President Qi said. Spy? I'm afraid so, Your Excellency Head of State, President Qi said. President Qi said, the fortifications of each country's research institutes are top-notch. For the other party to be able to break through so easily, there must be a spy passing on secret information behind the scenes. I'm afraid that the start of all this has something to do with the breach of Mixiao's border defense base a few days ago. Chapter 991. You're talking about Mixiao Nation's border defense base, right? The face of the head of state's virtual projection was gloomy. Of course he knew that the border defense base had been breached by a mysterious force a few days ago, and Mixiao's head of state still hadn't figured out what was going on. All the other countries had initially treated it as a joke, but who would have thought that a worldwide operation would occur so soon after that? That's right, President Qi said. In this subordinate's opinion, it's not appropriate for the authorities to act on this matter for now. Continue, the head of state said as he looked at President Qi. As an official, Huaxiao Alliance might be able to help direct them, but if we directly take action, I'm afraid the other side will think that we're showing weakness. It's not just our Huaxiao Alliance. In this subordinate's opinion, Mixiao Alliance, Yingxiao Alliance, and the cultivator alliances of every country should be more conservative and calm, so that the other side can give themselves away. But judging from the current situation, I'm afraid the rest of the cultivation countries won't be able to react calmly. The chief nodded and asked, what do you think, old Qi? President Qi replied, in this subordinate's opinion, we can directly get the Office of Strategic Deception to investigate. Huaxiao Alliance has invested a lot in the Office of Strategic Deception's construction. Now that it's time to use troops, I believe Director Grenade throwing won't have any problems. Let's do that for now. The head of state stood up. Immediately issue the order for the Office of Strategic Deception to set up a special investigation team. We must solve this case as soon as possible. Yes. President Xi and the 10 generals around him bowed. When the meeting ended, everyone left. General Yi leaned back in his chair as if he had already fallen asleep. I don't know when old Yi got the bad habit of sleeping during meetings. Even the head of state doesn't do anything about it. Medical Saint Minister Luo smiled bitterly. Let him be. Although old Yi is retired on the surface, he has become accustomed to the 996 system over the years and is still busy dealing with various things in private. I'm going to draft the documents, and I'll wake him up when we leave, President Xi replied. Thank you, old Xi. Minister Luo sighed helplessly, then summoned a big calabash shaped like a whale and left. This was the Void Kuan Gourd, Minister Luo's personal vehicle. At the same time, it was also a top-notch spatial sacred artifact. The space within it was so big that it could devour everything. After years of sacrificial refinement by Minister Luo, the interior of this magic treasure had been transformed from a small world to a large world. In the world inside the gourd, Minister Luo was like a god of creation. Have a safe trip, Sister Luo. President Xi saw her off at the door and watched her leave. Not long after Minister Luo left, General Yi, who had been pretending to sleep, suddenly opened his eyes. General Yi, speak, old Xi, why are you looking for me? Before the meeting was adjourned, President Xi used some tricks to keep General Yi alone. President Xi said bluntly, apart from the Office of Strategic Deception's investigation, we might also need your help, old Yi. What do you mean? General Yi narrowed his eyes. I need you, old Yi, to find out the spies hiding among us. And only you, old Yi, can do this. President Xi said, an enlightened sword heart can distinguish between evil and treacherous. You cultivate the boundless sword Tao, and your body has formed a massive righteous aura that no one else can match. You and I both know very well that our opponent this time isn't an ordinary person. Although I have an enlightened sword heart, it might not be of any use. General Yi got up, his face a little solemn. But now, it seems we can only give it a try. I've already found some clues. Old Yi, you can start investigating from there. After saying that, President Xi took out a jade tube and handed it to General Yi. This is the file on Immortal Shi Pai's case back then. It contains all the people involved in the case. After accepting the jade tube, General Yi's expression changed again, and he couldn't help thinking about something that had happened a long, long time ago. Those things played over and over in his mind like an old movie. The national terrorist incident this time was actually related to Immortal Shi Pai's case back then. Vaguely, General Yi suddenly felt a sense of fear. He felt like something big was about to happen. Not long after the Huaxiao Alliance meeting, a document bearing the direct seal of Huaxiao Alliance and the joint signatures of the 10 generals was directly sent to Zhuo, the leader of the Office of Strategic Deception's inspection team. The fact that the higher-ups had only set up a special investigation team immediately caused the entire Office of Strategic Deception to become highly focused. That very day, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal called for an emergency meeting, and the team leaders of each team arrived in the conference hall one after another. During the roll call, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal noticed that 2 people weren't present. One was Fang Xing, the leader of the Goon Squad, and the other was Wang Ling. This is a big deal, why isn't Brother Ling responding? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal didn't understand. Shifu and classmate Fang might be catching up on homework. Zhuo smiled. Everyone, this was a reasonable answer that no one could refute. In Ling Jinren's eyes, it was likely that making up homework was indeed more important than the current situation. But it was one thing for Wang Ling not to show up, but even Fang Xing wasn't here, which made Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal feel that something wasn't right. Classmate Fang Xing had always been a very polite person. Even if he wasn't present today, he should have sent a message in the group to let them know. But now, it was as if he had disappeared from the world, and there was no sign of him at all. Could something have happened? Grenade-throwing senior immortal felt that something wasn't right. But at that moment, a figure appeared at the entrance to the conference hall. It was a very beautiful girl with long hair, but her expression was very cold. "Miss, we're about to start the meeting, and the scenic tour isn't here," Dharmaraja said as he raised his head. The girl glared at Dharmaraja, then straightaway sat down in a chair and crossed her beautiful legs on the table. "I'm Fong Xing, Fong, classmate Fong." Everyone was shocked. It would have been fine if Fong Xing hadn't said anything, but now that she had suddenly mentioned her identity, everyone instantly felt that this girl's appearance was familiar. Classmate Fong Xing in her female form indeed looked like this. Because classmate Fong Xing was a man in his daily life, no one would have thought that the person who had come was actually Fong Xing. Is she an imposter? Audiobook also felt that it was a little strange. From her aura, it is indeed classmate Fong Xing. Grenade-throwing senior immortal was also astonished. But that wasn't all. Not long after Fong Xing sat down, another familiar youngster appeared at the entrance to the conference hall. Grenade-throwing senior immortal and Audiobook rubbed their eyes in disbelief. "Shifu?" Audiobook called out tentatively. "No need to greet me, I just saw the news and came especially for the meeting. Homework isn't more important than that." The youngster directly waved his hand at Audiobook, then directly walked up to Fong Xing and sat down next to her. Wait. Why did Ling Jinren speak? Everyone was shocked. "Why are you looking at me so strangely? Grenade throwing? Why haven't we started yet? Hurry up and start the meeting. I can't wait any longer." Wang Ling's mouth was like a machine gun. Is someone pretending to be Ling Jinren? Lightning Dharmaraja was dumbfounded. No, judging from her aura, it is indeed Ling Jinren himself. Cyan Jinren was also a little incredulous. But who could tell them why the taciturn Ling Jinren had suddenly become a chatterbox? "Brother Zhua, what's going on?" Grenade-throwing senior immortal was a little bewildered. "I don't know either." Audiobook was also a little bewildered. Then, he rubbed his eyes and stared hard at Shifu Wang Ling, whose style was completely different from usual. At that moment, Wang Ling's eyelids fluttered, and a pair of beautiful double eyelids appeared in front of everyone without the slightest bit of precaution. Audiobook? Grenade-throwing senior immortal? Everyone? Chapter 992. There seemed to be nothing wrong with these two faces, but they gave off a very strange feeling. Wang Ling and Fong Xing's sudden appearance had turned from dead fish eyes into double eyelids, and even their personalities seemed to have changed drastically. How could the real Ling Jinren be a chatterbox? As Wang Ling's good friend of many years, Grenade-throwing senior immortal almost immediately sensed the abnormality here. Could this double-eyelid chatterbox Ling Jinren be another clone like Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch? Grenade-throwing senior immortal wondered, but when he turned to look at the Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch clone on the side, he saw Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch's face full of hostility. Most clones could sense each other telepathically. It was very clear that the chatterbox Wang Ling's appearance wasn't within Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch's range of senses. These two aren't in cahoots. They're enemies. Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch immediately got up and released his aura to suppress them. But at that moment, Miss Bai Qiao suddenly got up and also released her aura. However, this pressure wasn't directed at Wang Ling and Fong Xing, but at Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch's clone. High-level clones had their own will and thoughts. Even if the main body wasn't around, they would still act according to the main body's thinking pattern. But Bai Qiao was different. She was part of the spirit of the scabbard, and also part of the spirit of the sword. Thus, the moment Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch attacked, Bai Qiao's Save Master Spirit Blade mode was instantly activated. This wasn't Bai Qiao's conscious action, but a subconscious reaction. Even Bai Qiao herself didn't have time to react. "Stop, I can't control my body." Bai Qiao shouted at Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch. Her ahogue was full of energy and glowed like a holy sword. Damn it, Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch's eyes darkened, and in the end he decided to stop. He glared at the two imposters in front of him, his heart full of hostility. "Dao Monarch, What on earth is going on? Dharmaraja was stunned, Fatty Luo was stunned, and everyone present was at a loss. Ever since Bai Qiao and Jinka had fused together to become Jingbai, Bai Qiao and Wang Ling's bond had deepened. The activation of Save Master Spirit Blade was undoubtedly the best proof of Wang Ling's identity. But on the other side, the real Wang Ling's clone was saying that the two people who had come for the meeting were imposters. What the hell was going on? Were they clones? There was indeed such technology in the cultivation world. For example, the humanoid magic treasure head of State 001 was the best example of the cultivation cloning technique. However, the clone was still fake, and there was still a difference between it and the original body. It was impossible for it to activate the series of magic treasures that had signed a contract with the original body. So, what was going on now? Grenade-throwing senior immortal stood up and stared at Wang Ling and Fang Xing. Brother Ling and brother Fang Xing, are you real? Miss Bai Qiao, can't you explain yourself? Of course we're genuine goods. Fang Xing tugged at her long hair. In her female form, Fang Xing had her own flirtatious vibe, which was very rare to see. Seeing this, Fatty Luo and Dharmaraja couldn't help but exclaim in their hearts. They had never expected Fang Xing to be so sexy in her female form. Judging from Miss Bai Qiao's reaction, the two of you indeed don't seem to be imposters, and your auras are also familiar, Grenade-throwing senior immortal suddenly said at that moment. Senior immortal. Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch was extremely anxious. He was already convinced that these two people were imposters, but with Bai Qiao protecting her master, it was useless for him to make a move. Don't worry, Dao Monarch, I'll handle it. Grenade-throwing senior immortal waved his hand, and Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch could only step back. After all, he was here to assist the Office of Strategic Deception in its development, and couldn't act above his rank. Count yourself lucky. Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch snorted. He forced himself to calm down as he stared at the two imposters in front of him with hostility. Thoughts flew through Grenade-throwing senior immortal's mind. His realm was currently the highest in this room, and he had to make some decisions like the head of a sect. His gaze swept over Wang Ling and Fang Xing, who he suspected were imposters, and he finally took a deep breath before saying, Brother Ling, you and I are as close as brothers, and De Wang has seen how you usually are. Why have you become so lively today? It's like you've become a different person. People change. I know I usually don't talk much, but we're already at chapter 992. This author has been serializing for 2 years, but he's only reached chapter 992. Even at this tortoise pace, I don't have more than 20 lines in the book. My heart is also very tired. Chatterbox Ling sighed deeply in his heart, feeling very bitter. Everyone, Chatterbox Ling, so, after reflecting on my painful experience last night, I decided that I must talk more in the future. As the protagonist of this book, how can I not talk? Change has to start little by little. I know this might be very difficult for me, but I hope everyone can still support me as always. Grenade-throwing senior immortal looked at Fang Xing next to him. Then, did classmate Fang Xing also change your mind after reflecting on your painful experience last night? That's right. Fang Xing nodded in her female form. As for me, you all know that I've admired Wang Ling for a long time. I've decided to live with him as a woman from now on, and I'm going to get my marriage certificate tomorrow. Everyone? Grenade-throwing senior immortal, so soon? Female Fang Xing, time waits for no man. Do you want me to wait until I'm old and yellow before I get my marriage certificate? Everyone was deeply shaken by Fang Xing's words, and couldn't pull themselves away for a long time. I understand. Grenade-throwing senior immortal sighed again as he looked at Wang Ling and Fang Xing. Since the two of you have decided to change your mind, we can only risk our lives to accompany you. We're about to start the meeting. Would you like to have some snacks? Let's talk while we eat. That's a good suggestion. Wang Ling nodded. Since Brother Ling has agreed, let's serve the snacks. Grenade-throwing senior immortal clapped his hands. Then, behind the screen in the conference room, several female disciples of the Office of Strategic Deception served the snacks that they had prepared. Wang Ling was startled. These are grenade-throwing senior immortal, crispy noodle snacks with different flavors. For Brother Ling's sake, I specially hired a chef from the North Sea to fry and mix different flavors of dipping sauces every day, so that Brother Ling can eat something different every time he comes. Brother Ling, don't you like it? No. I like it very much. Then have a try. Alright. Wang Ling cut off a crispy noodle snack and put it in his mouth to chew. A few seconds later, there was the sound of retching in the conference room. Grenade-throwing senior immortal chuckled and immediately stood up. Everyone. This is an imposter. Let's beat him up together. The real Brother Ling would never throw up because of crispy noodle snacks. Chapter 993. AI, I never thought I'd still be discovered. The talkative Wang Ling slowly got up, and an unprecedented aura burst forth from his eyes, which in the end turned into a dark shadow that enveloped everyone. What a heavy aura. Lightning Dharmaraja and the others were alarmed. Everyone knew that the real Ling Zhenren was a very Buddhist person. He was a good young man who loved learning and world peace, and stood aloof from worldly affairs in his daily life. Politics, beautiful women, and money were far less important than a pack of crispy noodle snacks. And this was the main reason why everyone admired him. Who else could have the real Ling Zhenren's unpretentious and unadorned air? They all looked at him enviously, but were too far behind to catch up. This was an expert realm that only experts who stood at the top of the world could achieve. If Fang Xing and I work together, you have no chance of winning. The talkative Wang Ling smiled gloomily. Audiobook trembled all over at these words. Senior immortal, even if it's a fake Shifu, he seems very strong. Do we really have a chance of winning? Whether we do or not, we have to try. Grenade-throwing senior immortal's eyes were resolute. For him, Brother Ling had always been an insurmountable mountain. But that was the real Brother Ling. This was the one and only Brother Ling he acknowledged. That impeccable Brother Ling definitely wasn't this imposter in front of them. Since it was an imposter, they had a 100% chance of winning. At this thought, grenade-throwing senior immortal couldn't help raising a finger at everyone, even if their chance of winning was slim. But because this was an imposter, they still had a 1% chance of winning. Everyone's reaction to grenade-throwing senior immortal's finger was different in that instant. Audiobook was shocked. As expected of senior immortal. He actually thought of this in such a short time. Does he mean for me to retreat up and then activate the sex defense alarm system outside to lock down the scene? That should be it. After all, I'm the weakest here, and Shifu isn't here, so I can only act as support. Otherwise, I'll immediately become cannon fodder once the battle starts. Senior Immortal is amazing, his battle plan is actually so clear. Lightning Dharmaraja was shocked. As expected of Senior Immortal. He actually thought of such a method in such a short period of time. Could it be that he wants me to use the holy relic's power of lightning to summon the ancient lightning to assist me in battle? That should be the case. After all, it seems that my only function here is to summon thunderbolts. Under the baptism of my ancient thunderbolt, this fake Ling Zhenren might reveal a mysterious flaw. Perfected Immortal, you're really amazing. Your battle plan is actually so clear. Immortal Toya was astonished. As expected of Senior Immortal. He actually thought of such a method in such a short period of time. Could it be that he wants me to throw the gourd up and summon a small world to cover this place so that the battle doesn't affect the sex conference room? At the same time, it can restrict the movements of the two imposters. Bai Qiao was shocked. As expected of True Immortal. Could it be that he wants me to summon Jinka as I fly up and have Jinka's power restrain me? As long as we become Jingbai again, this imposter's power won't work on me anymore. In a split second, the moment grenade-throwing Senior Immortal raised his finger, the team leaders of the Office of Strategic Deception's teams almost immediately made up their minds. Thus, in the next moment, everyone in the conference hall released their auras and released powerful fluctuations of spirit chi. Everyone's movements were uniform, as if they had rehearsed this in advance. Everyone performed their duties and did what they could. Grenade-throwing senior immortal? He had raised his finger just now to boost morale. Who the hell knew what this group of people had understood? On the other side, even Wang Ling and Fang Xing were stunned by the scene in front of them. The top experts of the Office of Strategic Deception had acted together. This was a rare sight to see. As expected, this group of people isn't easy to deal with. Female Fang Xing sneered. With a wave of her hand, a scythe appeared in her hand, and she directly raised it to slash at Audiobook in the air. Audiobook was the weakest one in the room, so she had already come up with a strategy of taking them down one by one. The terrifying saber chi swept up an infinite amount of spiritual energy, turning into a crescent moon stained with the smell of blood and rushing into the sky. In the end, the crescent moon twisted in the air, like a blood snake twisting wildly in the air. Wherever it passed, the void would shatter, bringing with it a great power. Not good. Audiobook was on his way out when he sensed something was wrong. His real Shifu Wang Ling had personally set up the sex defensive barrier back then. Once it was activated, these two imposters would have absolutely no chance of escaping. Brother Zhua, charge out with all your might. We'll take care of the rest. Lightning Dharmaraja shouted at the sky. He had already spat out the Thunder Clan's holy relic that had been passed down since ancient times, the Holy Thunder Pill. This pill had always been in Dharmaraja's throat, and now that he had taken it out, the sky above the Office of Strategic Deception was affected by the Holy Thunder Pill, and dark clouds suddenly covered it. The tens of thousands of dark clouds carried a terrifying weight as they pressed down very low, as if they could collapse and bury people at any time. Lightning flashed between the dark clouds and danced like a waterfall. Lightning Dharmaraja's realm might not be high, but the power of this holy thunder pill was enough to make his strength comparable to a true immortal's for a short time. But he couldn't maintain this state for too long, and there were very strong repercussions. Given Dharmaraja's current strength, he still couldn't completely withstand the formidable power of the Holy Thunder Pill's ancient thunderbolt. The Thunder Clan's ancient thunderbolt paid particular attention to the splitting technique of the Thunder Clan. Once it took form, even the alchemy master of the Holy Thunder Pill would be attacked by a waterfall. Thus, descendants of the Thunder Clan had to cultivate the unique lightning prevention spell from a young age. Unfortunately, Dharmaraja had only cultivated the lightning prevention spell to the 6th of the 12 layers. If the thunderbolt fell, it wouldn't kill him, but it would cause him to lose his memory for a short period of time, and he would become a fool without any fighting strength. He would need some time to recover before he could return to normal. Thus, summoning the Holy Thunder Pill was extremely risky for Dharmaraja, but there was no other way now. Fatty Luo assisted Dharmaraja from his side. He took out a stick from his large underpants and stuck it in the ground. This was the legendary weather stick, a magic artifact invented by Fatty Luo. When necessary, it could be adjusted to a lightning mode, thus increasing the power of the thunderbolt. It had to be said that Dharmaraja and Fatty Luo, these two heavyweights, cooperated extremely well in that moment. Boom! A thunderbolt as thick as a water bucket fell from the sky and smashed the dangerous saber strike of the female Fang Xing into smithereens. Audiobook gritted his teeth and seized the opportunity to escape. But he was well aware that this was just the beginning of the battle. Chapter 994. The power of the Holy Thunder Pill's ancient lightning far exceeded Fang Xing's expectations. But in terms of combat strength, the female Fang Xing was just a true immortal, and wasn't really difficult to deal with. The most difficult person to deal with here was this fake Ling Zhenren in front of them. Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch, I'll leave that fake brother Ling to you. I'll deal with this fake brother Fang Xing. Seeing that the fake Fang Xing's first attack had been blocked, grenade-throwing senior immortal immediately made up his mind. His strength was now above that of a true immortal. Even if he couldn't completely capture this fake Fang Xing alive, at the very least, he wouldn't be any weaker in battle. As for Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch, this was an intelligent clone that his real brother Ling had split off to begin with. Regardless of the outcome of this round, it would naturally be best if they won, but if they lost, news of the intelligent clone's death would instantly reach the real brother Ling. Then let's do it. Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch nodded. He was well aware that the Wang Ling in front of him was an imposter. As for the real Wang Ling, even his intelligent clone couldn't completely sense where he was. It was likely that he was in some kind of trouble. At that moment, everyone in the Office of Strategic Deception was of one mind, and the scene was very lively. All kinds of space arrays overlapped with each other, and with the power of Immortal Toya's small world covering them, Fatty Luo and Dharmaraja successfully activated the defense barrier to cover for Ajwa. The space and the barrier twisted and intertwined like fried dough twists to form an impenetrable net that trapped the two imposters. The birdcage plan. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal never expected the blockade barrier that Wang Ling had set up in the Office of Strategic Deception to actually come in handy at this moment. You're really interesting. Since I'm here, of course I won't run away. Actually, there's no need to go through so much trouble to set up this barrier. The chatterbox Wang Ling looked left and right, seemingly satisfied with the situation in front of him. To be able to cause such a scene, it looks like grenade-throwing Senior Immortal is really giving me face. But it's no use, you're all going to die today. You're too confident. Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch's expression was cold, in stark contrast to the grinning imposter on the other side. His hair was very long and hung down to his waist, and his facial features were a little similar to Wang Ling's. At the very beginning, Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch's facial features were exactly the same as Wang Ling's, but Wang Ling later gave him the authority to mold his face, and Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch could mold and adjust his facial features. However, there was one thing that couldn't be changed. He had to maintain his dead fish eyes. Everything could be lost, but the two most important things, dead fish eyes and crispy noodle snacks, couldn't be lost. Without either one of them, Ling Junren wouldn't be perfect. In the next moment, Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch directly attacked. Without any superfluous words, everyone saw a flash of green light as Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch suddenly moved forward and instantly appeared in front of the imposter. He raised his hand and swung it at the imposter's cheek with incomparable precision. Insignificant skill. The imposter's reaction was swift and fierce. He turned to the side and raised his arm to block the attack, and at the same time, swung out a slap. Just like that, a scene that astonished everyone happened. No one would have thought that two experts with top combat strength would actually slap each other in public, as if they were waving tortoise fists at each other. And the most important thing was that this wasn't an ordinary tortoise fists. Each of their slaps carried the tremendous power to destroy mountains and rivers. As they fanned the air, Immortal Toya's small world was instantly smashed to pieces. Immortal Toya's heart ached. He had bought all the scenery in his gourd small world with his own money. What mountains? Little rivers? And that vast ocean, it was all real gold and silver. After a person's cultivation reached a certain realm, they often like to cultivate their body and mind. Just like the manor system in some martial arts games, all the scenery and decorations in the small world could be bought with money. Immortal Toya had put in a lot of hard work to set up this small world. Because different spirit herbs grew in different environments, Immortal Toya could freely set up a nursery in the small world that was suitable for the growth of spirit herbs. But now, everything in the small world was being destroyed bit by Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch and the imposter Ling Junren. At the same time, because of the interference from the Holy Thunder Pill in the sky, the weather in the small world was bad, and thunderbolts fell from the sky, creating a scene that looked like the end of the world. Brother 2, don't be too sad. The office will reimburse you for your losses later, Ling Junren comforted him. My losses are small, but where on earth is the real Ling Junren? Immortal Toya was full of doubts, and at the same time, this was the question that everyone in the Office of Strategic Deception wanted to ask at that moment. We'll find out very soon, Ling Junren replied. Ajwa's aura wasn't in the small world. Under Fatty Luo and Dharmaraja's cover, Ajwa had charged out of the conference room and activated the defense barrier. Now, his whereabouts were unknown. It was likely that he had gone to understand the situation. Elsewhere, the the battle between grenade-throwing senior immortal and the imposter Fang Xing was equally fierce. But compared with the noise caused by the two people slapping each other, it paled in comparison. In her female form, classmate Fang Xing's attacks were even more ferocious than in her normal state, and each one was aimed at vital points. She wanted to kill grenade-throwing senior immortal. The fake classmate Fang is really vicious. As grenade-throwing senior immortal defended against her attacks, he couldn't help looking at classmate Fang Xing's huge. This was a normal reaction for every man. Not long ago, there had been a popular online game in which some live streamers bought a visual focusing device that could accurately pinpoint where their gazes were focused. After the male live streamers turned on the device, they clicked on pictures of beautiful women. In the end, the first thing that most male live streamers focused on was the breasts of the beautiful women in the pictures. Grenade-throwing senior immortal didn't think he was such a perverted person. Staring at a girl's chest was very rude and not gentlemanly at all. But in the midst of the battle, his eyes would always involuntarily drift over. This was a huge distraction. What should he do? Was it because it was too big? No, grenade-throwing senior immortal took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. Even if he was facing an imposter, the other party's figure and appearance were that of his good brother, classmate Fang Xing. Grenade-throwing senior immortal had seen Fang Xing's female form more than anyone else here. How could he have dirty thoughts about his own brother? So, the only explanation was that this imposter had definitely done something to her chest. Unfortunately, grenade-throwing senior immortal hadn't found any evidence of this obvious perverted behavior. Chapter 995. On the other side, after successfully activating the barrier, Audiobook immediately rushed in the direction of the Wang family's small villa. Now, everyone was in the dark and had no idea what was going on. The Office of Strategic Deception was in chaos, and Audiobook had to figure out what on earth was going on. After activating the barrier, Audiobook's train of thought was very clear. He wouldn't be able to help if he stayed to fight, and might instead distract everyone's attention to protect himself. So his first reaction was to go to the Wang family's small villa to look for Shifu. As Wang Ling's first disciple, Audiobook had a special right. If necessary, he could seek help from the gremlins in the Wang family's small villa who had been enlightened by Shifu. Thus, even if he didn't successfully find Shifu, he could still ask for help from the small villa. What happened this time was too sudden, and caught everyone off guard. Audiobook flew to the entrance of the Wang family's small villa. When he saw that dog too had also disappeared from the doorway, he cursed in his heart. Are uncle and auntie in? Audiobook knocked on the door, but there was no response. Father Wang, Mother Wang and Grandfather Wang had all disappeared. Crap, I'm afraid something really has happened. Feeling that something was wrong, Audiobook straightaway took out a pen from his chest pocket and pressed it hard with his finger. The pen instantly turned into a dazzling blue-gray spirit sword. Although he didn't know what on earth was going on inside the villa, he was already on guard. He knocked on the door and gave the password to enter. Crispy noodle snacks are #1 in the world. Click. The sound of the villa's door unlocking rang out, and then it slowly opened. Wang Ling had enlightened this door before, but that was a long time ago. It was a gremlin enlightened by version 1.0, and wasn't as powerful as the newly enlightened door in Wang Ling's bedroom. Now that the latest enchantment spell had reached version 3.0, both Book of Sage Immortal and the bedroom door were beneficiaries of version 3.0. As for version 2.0, it was Lord Ma. However, Lord Ma's fighting strength was also very strong. As a version 2.0 gremlin that Wang Ling often doted on, Lord Ma's fighting strength was even comparable to that of version 3.0. The small villa was quiet, and there was a strange sense of stillness. Audiobook swallowed, moved slowly, and finally went up to the second floor with his sword in hand. There were no signs that the house had been invaded or that there had been a fight, but Audiobook found it extremely strange that Father Wang, Mother Wang and Grandfather Wang had all disappeared. What the hell happened? Let's take a look in Shifu's bedroom. Audiobook took a deep breath and went to Wang Ling's room. Then, he saw the Book of Sage Immortal on the desk. The Book of Sage Immortal was omniscient, so it might know something. Holy Book. What on earth happened? Audra asked. Master went to the Palace of Mirrors and lost contact with this world, Book of Sage Immortal answered. Since his soul was linked to Wang Ling's, he naturally knew what on earth had happened, so he told Wang Ling everything he knew in detail. How could this suddenly happen? Student Fang Xing was taken away because Shifu went to save him. But since you knew, why didn't you tell us? Audra rebuked him. Book of Sage Immortal said helplessly, as a gremlin enlightened by Master, I'm not allowed to leave the bedroom without the permission of Master or the person who authorized me. I'm also not allowed to use my power to change everything. All right. Audra sighed. Even so, where are Father Wang, Mother Wang and Grandfather Wang? They've taken Grandfather Wang back to his hometown. Why in such a hurry? Audra was blank for a moment before he exclaimed in shock, but their sons suddenly disappeared, aren't they worried? Before Mr. Wang and Madam Wang left, I reminded them. But Mr. Wang didn't seem to mind. Audra covered his face and smiled bitterly. It seemed that this was indeed their son, which was why he had such a reaction. Then, Holy Book, you should know that the Office of Strategic Deception was attacked. The fake Shifu and student Fang Xing launched an attack, Audra said. Of course I know, Book of Sage Immortal replied. Without any reinforcements, your chances of winning are 1%, 1%. At that moment, Audra suddenly understood the meaning of grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's hand gesture earlier. It turned out that he was really talking about the chances of winning. What a wonderful misunderstanding, then, Holy Book. As the person who authorized you, I now order you to use everything you have to get rid of those two imposters. Then try to find out what their objective is. Audra said at that moment. He flashed his palm, in which the character, Ling, shone brightly. Book of Sage Immortal finally understood after receiving the order. Understood. Now, the first wave of reinforcements is already on their way to the front. The first wave of reinforcements? Aren't you going to make a move? Audra was curious. As gremlins enlightened by our Lord, we still have to keep a low profile. Unless we have no other choice, we can't leave the villa's perimeter. But I've already notified reinforcements, and our chances of winning the battle are now much higher. Book of Sage Immortal replied, in the end, imposters are imposters. There's no way they can compare to our real Lord. On the other side, not long after Book of Sage Immortal sent out the notification, a space tunnel opened up outside the Office of Strategic Deception's giant egg-shaped barrier. Looks like there's a lot going on right now. The newcomer was none other than Wang Zhen. Wang Zhen had previously been blacklisted by the Heavenly Tao for offending Wang Ling. As time passed, he had recovered some of his strength. He crossed his arms and floated in the sky. Lu Qingyi stood next to him, her willowy eyebrows furrowed. As expected, the smell on these two imposters is very strange. It's a power I've never seen before. If we want to help, we have to enter the barrier first. Wang Zhen looked down at the giant egg-shaped barrier. The scene looked very frightening, as if it were the end of the world. Outside the giant egg-shaped barrier, which was the size of a football field, dense dark clouds and surging thunder. The space around it cracked continuously, and even the ground caved in. Outside the barrier, the disciples of the Office of Strategic Deception were panic-stricken and didn't know what to do. This barrier was set up by Ling Zhenren to be airtight. There's no way to get in at all. Unless our bodies are naturally drawn into the space and the energy outside the barrier flows in like a vortex, Lu Qingyi said. But if we do that, someone has to clear the way. Wang Zhen, then you mean, Lu Qingyi, my strength isn't restricted. I'm the main fighting force, and I have to conserve my strength. So I'll leave it to you to clear the way. You've been beaten by your parents since you were a kid, so there's absolutely no problem with your physique. Wang Zhen, there's no time to think about it. It's up to you, Wang Zhen. As soon as she said that, Lu Qingyi kicked Wang Zhen down and followed behind him. Wang Zhen was drawn into the torrent of energy at the very front, and the pain was heart-wrenching. It hurt a lot more than his mother hitting him. Chapter 996. Wang Zhen felt that Lu Qingyi was definitely doing this on purpose. Since ancient times, there had been countless proverbs to prove a woman's strong desire for revenge. A woman's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the sea, a woman's heart is the most poisonous, and so on. The two of them didn't have any feelings for each other, and had only fled to Earth because of a misunderstanding when they ran away from each other's marriages. Now, in order to learn from Wang Ling, both Wang Zhen and Lu Qingyi had joined number 60 high school, which was the number one target Wang Zhen had to be on guard against. After choosing to join number 60 high school, Wang Zhen had been mentally prepared. As a man, he didn't care to bicker with Lu Qingyi, but the problem was that this girl seemed to be deliberately torturing him. Ow, it hurts. Wang Zhen was sucked into the storm fissure in the barrier, and the powerful spatial force tore at his body, making him feel like ants were gnawing at him all over. No, I can't hold on much longer. Wang Zhen was in so much pain that his face was twisted. Are you a man or not? Lu Qingyi was at the very back, completely using Wang Zhen as a human shield. Ah. I can't, I'm going to break. Just hold on a little longer. We're already in the depths. Just a little bit deeper. Don't say such ambiguous words. Lu Qingyi carried Wang Zhen forward, and the two of them soon saw the light up ahead. They had arrived. Inside the barrier, the war against counterfeits was still going on in an orderly manner. Through Book of Sage Immortal's remote screen, Audiobook could clearly see the situation inside. Can they really do it? He was doubtful about Wang Zhen and Lu Qingyi's participation. Although he didn't deny that both of them were top-notch experts from Ninefold Star, his fake Shifu wasn't easy to deal with. In order to ensure that we catch them alive, this is the most suitable configuration for now, Book of Sage Immortal replied. I've already made precise calculations. If we force the other party to die, I'm afraid we won't be able to get the other party's true purpose out of them. But Mr. Zhuo's words aren't unreasonable. Although this configuration can ensure that we catch them alive, it wouldn't be good if we end up suffering heavy losses in order to do so. You have a plan? Of course. With a thought from Book of Sage Immortal, a pair of navy blue pants floated over on its own as if it had a mind of its own. The pants flew into Audiobook's hands, and he thought of something. Shifu's school pants? Master's school pants are very unique. Only the right side is open, and there's a pocket. Book of Sage Immortal said, this looks like an ordinary pair of school pants, but no one would think that there's actually something special about the pocket of this pair of pants. What do you mean? Holding his Shifu's school pants, he trembled all over at the graininess of the coarse fabric. He had actually touched Shifu's pants. No, he needed to calm down. My lord is used to ending a fight with one or several slaps, and will occasionally summon Lord Jinka to show himself. But in fact, the lord also had a complete set of king's treasure pants. Of course, it's the pants of pants. What is this? Zhuo was stupefied. Every year on my lord's birthday, all the heavenly Tao will give my lord congratulatory gifts, and many of these gifts are magic weapons from the heavenly Tao. My lord didn't like them, but was too embarrassed to refuse their good intentions, so he created this king's treasure pants to store all the magic treasures inside. So it's a magic treasure vault. Zhuo understood. No, Mr. Zhuo, you don't understand the significance of this king's treasure pants. Book of Sage Immortal said. His voice gradually deepened. The so-called king's treasure pants naturally contains the top magic treasures in the world, and there is a standard for all contributions to the heavenly Tao. My lord's treasure pants, on the other hand, contains all world-defying magic treasures. In other words, it's what cultivators call a divine artifact. Zhuo, from the moment my lord turned 1 year old, all the heavenly Tao began to give him all kinds of world-defying magic treasures. Later, when they saw my lord store all the magic treasures in the king's treasure pants, they took the initiative to put the gifts inside every year on my lord's birthday. Now, there are more than 10,000 world-defying magic treasures in the king's treasure pants. Audiobook was dumbfounded. 0_O. More than 10,000 world-defying magic treasures. Furthermore, they were all birthday gifts that Shifu had forgotten. No wonder the heavenly Tao had never won Shifu's favor. It turned out that he had given the wrong birthday gifts every year. How could he not give crispy noodle snacks as a birthday gift? But then again, Audiobook was also startled by such a large number of world-defying magic treasures. No matter what kind of magic treasures these world-defying magic treasures were, it had to be known that cultivators often had to pay a heavy price on the road to pursuing top-notch equipment. For the sake of top-notch equipment, some people would venture deep into Dragon's Pool and Tiger's Den to gather forging materials, and almost lose their lives. Sure enough, his Shifu was an immortal. Ordinary people simply couldn't match the operation of an immortal. Alright, stop spacing out, Mr. Zhua. Since you want to help Miss Lu Qingyi and the others, start opening the packages now. These birthday gifts are all piled up in the king's treasure pants, and they're all unopened. You can freely choose the magic treasures for Miss Lu and the others to use. Alright, without further ado, Audiobook directly reached into the king's treasure pants. He took out several exquisitely packaged gift boxes of different sizes in a row, and couldn't help rubbing his hands together. Who knew what on earth he would be able to open them? Inside the Office of Strategic Deception's barrier, Lu Qingyi and Wang Zhen's arrival put a balance on the situation. The cultivation level on Ninefold Star wasn't on the same level as on Earth to begin with. Wang Zhen and Lu Qingyi's appearance also put some pressure on the two imposters. What should we do? After exchanging blows with grenade-throwing senior immortal, the female Fang Xing flew backwards. Behind her, the fake Wang Ling just flicked his fingers lightly to steady her, and the two of them retreated more than 10 meters to put some distance between them. There's no other way. The mission we received is to kill everyone here at all costs. The fake Wang Ling had a sinister expression on his face. You're going to use that move? The female Fang Xing was a little surprised. She hadn't expected things to reach this point so quickly. This is the only way to complete the mission now. We can't delay any longer. After saying that, the fake Wang Ling's entire body floated up from the ground. He slowly spread his arms and said in a Chinibyu voice, "Let the world feel pain together." Chapter 997. Grenade-throwing senior immortal. Thank you, Miss Lu and brother Wang Zhen, for coming to help. No need to thank me, senior immortal. You need to be careful, he's about to go big. While the fake Wang Ling was accumulating power in the air, the Ninefold Star duo sensed a powerful killing intent, as if boundless spirit power was being exchanged on the fake Wang Ling's body, and then gradually solidified. An invisible wall of spirit power hovered around the fake Wang Ling's body, blocking all attacks. This was an aura phenomenon, formed after the spirit power was condensed, and was also the legendary protection mechanism for a big move. If you couldn't break through this aura and fight your way inside, everything would be nonsense. Lu Qingyi sensed that the situation wasn't good. In the blink of an eye, she immediately took out Wang Zhen, the hardest secret weapon she had at her disposal. She abruptly grabbed Wang Zhen by the collar and threw him far away. Wang Zhen, who already had the experience of breaking through a barrier and passing through a spatial storm into the interior of a barrier, was unexpectedly very cooperative at this moment. As the most iron-headed person on Ninefold Star, Wang Zhen was already prepared to throw caution to the wind. Idiot. The fake Wang Ling's eyes opened a slit. He didn't think anything of this attack at all. Boom. Wang Zhen was thrown like a shot put by Lu Qingyi, and then bounced back by the aura. It's no use. Female Fang Xing stood guard on the side. She couldn't be of much help, but she also knew that all the attacks in front of her were useless. Even though it was a fake Wang Ling, it was still hard for anyone to approach him given his aura. Instead, the big move was about to finish accumulating power, and when that happened, everyone here would die. Their mission was to take the lives of all the people here. Bomb of the King's Core, Book of Sage Immortal said faintly. Even through Book of Sage Immortal's screen, Audiobook could feel this frightening power. So this move was called Bomb of the King's Core? Book of Sage Immortal, to be precise, it should be the Bomb of the King's Core. But because he's a fake, he doesn't deserve the big character in front of his name. How strong is Shifu's move? Audiobook asked curiously. This is one of the few Heaven's Path spells that are capable of mass destruction. In the end, this fake is still a fake. It actually needs to accumulate power. Master, you just have to think about it and you can do it instantly without accumulating power. This move could have destroyed a galaxy. But judging from the amount of energy the imposter is accumulating, he probably wants to narrow down the range and concentrate his power within the Office of Strategic Deception's barrier to blow up everyone there. Everyone was blown to death, could it be? Combined with the information that Book of Sage Immortal had shared about the Palace of Mirrors, Audiobook suddenly thought of a possibility. Mr. Zhua guessed correctly. I'm afraid the other party's goal is to blow up grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and the others, then arrange for them to be resurrected in the Palace of Mirrors and be used by the enemy. But what about my master? Audiobook didn't understand. He already understood why the Black Shadow men in the Palace of Mirrors had massacred researchers, but he couldn't figure out why fake Shifu and classmate Fang Xing had appeared. According to my comprehensive analysis, there's a 94.89% chance that this is the case. The Research Institute has the hair of our master, which Mr. Guoping used as an energy thread, as well as some of Mr. Fang Xing's baby DNA. Back then, because Mr. Fang Xing was Immortal Shipai's child, he was put under observation at the Research Institute for a period of time. Book of Sage Immortal made its own deduction. The only possibility for the other party to kidnap classmate Fang Xing and gather so many researchers is that they want to resurrect Immortal Shipai and use him to lead the researchers in carrying out cloning. This fake master and classmate Fang Xing are clone test subjects. Clone test subjects? Could it be that the other party wanted to clone an army of Ling Jinren? Audiobook instantly felt his blood run cold at this thought. From our analysis of the fake master, it's clear that the other party's cloning technology is still in the experimental stage. This was because the clone's fake master, whether in terms of ability or personality, was far inferior to the real master. But once they develop a complete cloning method, something very terrifying will happen. As Book of Sage Immortal spoke, it also made a deduction. Once they achieve a complete clone of our master, a large number of clone masters will start to use Earth as a base to launch a large-scale cosmic expansion and attack in a short period of time. According to my deduction, there's a 99% chance that the clone army of our master will attack the Crispy Noodle Snacks galaxy first. When our master was very young, he used a heavenly Dao spell to send the original flavor Crispy Noodle Snacks into space. After many years of accumulation, the original flavor Crispy Noodle Snacks finally formed the Crispy Noodle Snacks galaxy. Furthermore, this galaxy has now become a resource that some alien lifeforms rely on for survival. Because of the pepper powder in the Crispy Noodle Snacks, the Crispy Noodle Snacks galaxy has its own heat, which is like a star that illuminates all of outer space. Thus, many intelligent lifeforms were born because of the Crispy Noodle Snacks galaxy. Audiobook, they feed on Crispy Noodle Snacks, and collect them to trade with other planets for other survival resources. Now, the Crispy Noodle Snacks galaxy has become the second largest economy in the universe, apart from Divine Dao Star. Audiobook's jaw had already dropped. But our master never paid attention to this matter. He spent too much of his energy on studying and keeping his grades down. He had no idea that his careless actions as a child would actually create a new kind of cosmic life form. Moreover, because of his desire for the different flavors of Crispy Noodle Snacks, the original flavor Crispy Noodle Snacks gradually faded out of his lordship's sight. This is also one of the reasons why his lordship doesn't care about this matter. Book of Sage Immortal sighed. Once our master's clone army appears, our master's army will definitely swiftly take control of Earth and launch an attack on the Crispy Noodle Snacks galaxy. Once the second largest economy in the universe collapses, Divine Dao Star won't be able to maintain the economic network of the entire universe. Audiobook, Book of Sage Immortal, when that time comes, the universe will be plunged into misery and suffering because of the collapse of the crispy noodle snacks galaxy. Life on all the major planets will lack rations, and famine will ensue. Famine will be the fuse for war. Extraterrestrial lifeforms will officially start a war for survival resources, and a large number of living things will become extinct. In the end, Earth will inevitably be attacked by the entire universe, and the era of dimensional expeditions will inevitably begin. In order to attack our master, Earth will also become a sacrifice for the universe. Ah joie. Chapter 998. Of course, what Book of Sage Immortal had just said was a wild guess based on the success of the cloning plan. Given the strength of the fake Ling Jinren now, it would be far more difficult to clone the real Ling Jinren than one could imagine. But from Book of Sage Immortal's analysis, Jua had obtained a lot of key information. 1. The enemy had come prepared for this plan, and their goal was very clear. They had kidnapped student Fang Xing to obtain immortal Shipai's urn and resurrect him. 2. They had massacred the scientific researchers so that they could be resurrected in the Palace of Mirrors, and then used under immortal Shipai's leadership to study human cloning in order to clone an army of Wanglings. 3. The mastermind behind the scenes was still unclear, but the other party was 100% connected to immortal Shipai's case back then, and was aware of the results of immortal Shipai's research back then. Cloning spells were forbidden spells. Doing research in secret was a death sentence if caught. Could there really be an internal problem? Putting together the above points, Ajwa was even more certain that there was a spy. But the question was, who on earth was this spy? Apart from the mastermind behind the scenes, this was now the biggest doubt. As long as they could catch the spy, the identity of the mastermind behind the scenes would be clear. But now, in the end, they had to solve everything one by one. Ajwa was well aware that his task now was to assist grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and the others in capturing the two imposters alive. He swiftly opened the express delivery box, and on the other side, Lord Ma used his teleportation ability to directly teleport these magic artifacts inside the barrier. Cyan Jinren recognized this golden light at once. It's Lord Ma's teleportation golden light. It looks like something's coming. Lord Ma's voice rang out. On behalf of Ajwa, I have brought you the treasured magic artifact of my lord. Please use it properly, and be sure to capture these two imposters. As the teleportation golden light disappeared, a glittering divine artifact that was the color of flowing gold came into view. Slime's horn? Wasn't this the legendary Western divine artifact? Legend said that this horn could summon a large number of slime legions to fight. These slimes were indestructible, and would only grow in number. Unless there was a way to wipe them out in one go, there was no way to completely eradicate them. It's just a mere divine artifact. In the air, the impostor sneered. You want to take me down with just a magic tool? What a fool's dream. Don't be too sure. Lord Ma warned. After that, a few more golden teleportation lights appeared in the void. Therefore, in the next barrier, everyone let out a series of curses. Holy shit. Thunder God's Wrath Hammer. Holy shit. Shield of the Underworld Deity. Holy shit. Universal Wi-Fi Shielding Staff. Holy shit. Immovable Yang Spirit Saber. With so many legendary divine weapons appearing at the same time, everyone in the Office of Strategic Deception was instantly terrified. This time, even the imposter in the void started to lose her cool. He had never thought that so many god artifacts would appear at the same time. Just the pressure from the descent of the god artifacts made him unsteady for a moment. He almost fell off. The origins of these artifacts were strange. Not only did they come from all over the world, but they were also enchanted. The +13 dazzling special effect could be felt from a long distance away. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal held the scepter of the king, a divine weapon, which symbolized supreme authority. Anyone who saw the scepter would have to kneel down with just a thought from grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. You lose. At that moment, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's eyes were fixed on the two imposters in the field. The female student Fang Xing imposter couldn't be controlled at all, and with a plop, she directly knelt on the ground. In the air, the remaining imposter had an unwilling expression on his face. His king's nuclear bomb couldn't be interfered with when it was activated, and logically speaking, it would never be interrupted, which was why he was so confident. But reality was always crueler than ideals. In the end, an imposter was just an imposter, and couldn't compare to the real deal. When grenade-throwing senior immortal stared at the imposter in the air with the scepter of the king in his hand, the latter's knees instantly felt a tremendous pressure. And then, there was no then. The double-eyelid imposter in the air slid down like a blob of snot from a ball of energy on the spot. With a loud bang, the imposter's knees dug deep into the ground directly cracked from kneeling. My God, this scepter is so good. Everyone from the Office of Strategic Deception was horrified by the power of the scepter of the king. Was there any ability in the world more hardcore than kneeling? This was hard control. It was completely merciless. The most important thing was that the imposter's king's nuclear bomb wasn't the original, and it took too long to activate, which gave grenade-throwing senior immortal and the others an opportunity. Now, the two imposters were kneeling on the ground. They couldn't move under the pressure of the scepter of the king. Tell us where you came from and your real purpose. Otherwise, you'll have to accept the baptism of our divine weapon package. At that moment, everyone from the Office of Strategic Deception surrounded them with a divine weapon in each hand, and the two imposters broke out in a cold sweat. The world of the Palace of Mirrors wasn't just a simple secret land. Although Wang Ling hadn't been in it for long, he could already sense the various complex structures behind it. It might be easy for cultivators to create a small world, but the Palace of Mirrors didn't exist because of the power of a world, but because it was a dimensional power of a higher level than a world. In other words, the Palace of Mirrors existed in another universe dimension, and it accepted the souls of the dead in the entire universe. After scanning the structure of the entire munitions factory, Wang Ming and the others drew up a map of it. As it turns out, this munitions factory is just a processing plant. Classmate Fang Xing isn't here. Wang Ming observed the map. He had already joined hands with Guoping, and the two of them drew up a map of this world through deduction and calculation. Of course, this map was the complete opposite of a real cultivation map. At the same time, Wang Ling made a new discovery. This world was not just made up of the souls of the dead. Although the Palace of Mirrors accepted the dead from all over the universe, it also had its own indigenous residents. Using the Great Blood Origin spell, Wang Ling could clearly trace the bloodline connections of these people, and could clearly sense that these people's souls had never left the world of the Palace of Mirrors. Where do we go to investigate now? Guoping asked. Let's go back to number 60 high and take a look, Wang Ling replied telepathically. He was a little curious about how number 60 high had changed in the world of the Palace of Mirrors. At the same time, Wang Ling could also sense that there was a native resident of the Palace of Mirrors living in number 60 high. Chapter 999. The layout of number 60 high school and the Palace of Mirrors was basically the same as number 60 high school in reality, but the decorations were more luxurious. The palm trees at the entrance, which Wang Ling had said had 1 foot in the grave, were now full of life again in the world of the Palace of Mirrors. Why is the school gate closed? It's not the weekend yet, is it? Guoping was puzzled. Have you forgotten that the world of the Palace of Mirrors is completely the opposite? Look here. Wang Ming pointed to a sign on which a number of precautions were written in very small characters. Note 1. In order to meet the needs of students to reduce their burdens, the Alliance of 10,000 Schools has approved that school hours are Saturdays and Sundays, with Monday to Friday breaks. Teachers are not allowed to assign homework during breaks, and all homework must be completed during school hours. If students are unable to complete it, the teachers will guide them. Note 2. In order to protect students' mental health, teachers are not allowed to contact their parents without permission if their grades aren't good. Teachers are fully responsible for their students' learning. Note 3. Without students' consent, teachers are not allowed to forcibly occupy students' free time for activities and breaks, such as physical education classes and so on. Reasonable communication with the whole class is required for the time to be used, and a class vote will be held. The voting rules are, the minority obeys the majority. Note 4. If students are not satisfied with the food in the school canteen, they are allowed to order takeout during their lunch break, and teachers in charge are not allowed to interfere. Note 5. Students must buy school uniforms, but if they are not satisfied with the uniforms, they can choose not to wear them. The teachers in charge are not allowed to interfere with students' personalities. Note 6. Any violation of these rules in the past will result in a major demerit for both students and teachers. It's the complete opposite. Guoping stared blankly at the 5 precautions. He instantly sighed deeply at how difficult it was for the teachers outside the Palace of Mirrors. High school was the most rebellious period, and problems would arise if they were too strict or too lax. Outstanding teachers all had a ruler in their hearts, and knew how to measure right from wrong, when to advance and retreat, when to relax. But then again, they couldn't be completely ignored. An orderly world was governed by rules. These precautions might seem like rules, but they were more like a way to let the students do whatever they wanted. If the students didn't have self-control, there might be chaos. But Guoping didn't think that chaos would happen in the world of the Palace of Mirrors. It was true that there were natives in the Palace of Mirrors, but most of them had absorbed the souls of the dead from other universes. Although people were resurrected in the Palace of Mirrors, they had lost the memories of their previous lives and only remembered how they died. After that, they settled down in this world under the Black Shadows arrangement, forming new families in 2s and 3s, living a life without hope and dreams every day. There were jobs in the Palace of Mirrors, but all resources were shared. Even if they received a salary, people here didn't need to spend money to buy what they wanted. The so-called money was just a decoration here. Although they had been resurrected and could obtain everything they wanted here, they had no dreams and no hope. They were like puppets, repeating their lives under the manipulation of these shadowy figures. So, is this really a happy country? Wang Ming grinned self-deprecatingly. It's just a world that seems to have rules, but in reality, there are no rules at all. Guoping couldn't help shuddering. He could sense a strange feeling in this world, and the more he thought about it, the more he shuddered. Guoping was also a man who had experienced the world. Back when he had wandered the universe, when everyone thought he was already dead, he had come to Divine Tao Star alone. Using his human wisdom, he had studied Divine Tao Star's language and experienced all kinds of strange things. But now, as he stood at the gate of the fake number 60 high school in the Palace of Mirrors, he got goosebumps all over his body, and didn't dare think about this world at all. He had never thought that he would come into contact with a world on another level. This world was different from the secret realms that many cultivators understood. Although a mystic realm was also a different space, generally speaking, the existence of a mystic realm was still in the same dimension. But the world Wang Ling had come to now was completely different from the real world he was in. The shadowy figures here exuded a mysterious power. Star Lord of Divine Tao Star had said that this power was a special power called Fate Tao. But now that he was in the Palace of Mirrors, Wang Ling felt that it wasn't as simple as it seemed. In order to deceive others, Wang Ling and the others changed into number 60 high school uniforms after entering the school. Wang Ling had always prepared number 60 high school uniforms for himself. He was a good kid who loved cleanliness, and had several spare sets on him in case they got dirty in a fight or an accident. In fact, it wasn't just Wang Ling who had several sets of clothes on him. Many characters in animations actually had several sets of clothes on them. This was why in animations, no matter if it was raining, thundering or lightning, or after a big battle, the characters' clothes would always automatically return to their original state, and wouldn't be damaged at all, because everyone had several sets on them. Guoping and Wang Ming didn't need to wear school uniforms. They were wearing mecha armor, so they could camouflage themselves and change their clothes at any time. As long as Wang Ling changed his clothes, they would be scanned, and the exact same clothes would appear on their bodies. This was a very practical ability, like a chameleon's coat. Which class are you guys from? In the distance, a very beautiful girl suddenly appeared around the corner of the teaching building. She was wearing a snow-white apron, which turned out to be a complete Gothic maid outfit. The girl's voice was incomparably sweet, as crisp as a bell. Grade 1, Class 3, Wang Ling replied quietly. The girl frowned. So you're from Grade 1, Class 3. It's really strange that you're actually in school. But what are you doing here? Students in the good-for-nothing class hate going to school the most. They'll do everything they can to skip class even on Saturdays and Sundays. Wang Ling, the good-for-nothing class. Wang Ming was startled. He remembered that Wang Ling's Grade 1, Class 3 was supposed to be an elite class. Sure enough, everything in the Palace of Mirrors was the opposite. Then who are you? Guo Ping probed. The girl in front of him sighed helplessly and spread her hands. You don't come to school every other day, no wonder you don't know me. I cook the meals for all the students in school for 2 days. My name is Li Wan, you can call me Wan, Wan, Wang Ling felt that this word was a little familiar. Then, he raised his head in astonishment. F***K. This person turned out to be Mother Wan from the Palace of Mirrors. Furthermore, he could clearly sense that this person wasn't a wandering ghost, but an indigenous resident of the Palace of Mirrors. Chapter 1000. In another dimension, Mother Wan was also a kitchen maid at number 60 high school, but she was much younger and more beautiful than she was in real life. Wang Ling felt a little unaccustomed to this face. It wasn't because she wasn't pretty enough, but because she was too pretty, which made him feel a little out of character. Furthermore, Wang Ling always felt that Mother Wan in the real world was more amiable. Although Mother Wan was now taking the dark cuisine route in order to develop new cuisines, she actually still had a very good heart. It's already noon. You guys haven't eaten yet, right? Do you want to go eat with me at the cafeteria? Miss Wan smiled. Is that okay? Wang Ming asked. You students are really strange. This is the first time I've seen the weak students of the good-for-nothing class being so polite. You're obviously the elites among the good-for-nothings. That's why there's the word elite on the back of your uniforms, Miss Wan said. Wang Ling, so the definition of the word essence had been changed. The world of the Palace of Mirrors was truly magical. Then let's talk while we eat, Wang Ming said. Then wait for me, I'm going to the bathroom, said Mother Wan. All right, Miss Wan quickly ran to the women's toilet, and 10 seconds later, Mother Wan came out. Wang Ming was baffled again. So fast? Miss Wan, it's standing up, of course it's fast. Everyone, at Wang Ling's feet, Dog 2 was completely shocked by this world. If a girl stood up to pee, wouldn't the guy have to squat down and use toilet paper? What kind of strange operation was this? Li Wan invited them to eat in the canteen. Only then did Wang Ling realize that there were actually quite a few teachers in the canteen. They weren't Wang Ling and the others, but when they saw Wang Ling, they all nodded and bowed. Even if they knew that Wang Ling and the others were students from the good-for-nothing class, they didn't have any temper. There was no lack of this kind of refined and easygoing teacher in the real world, but the entire system in the Palace of Mirrors was messed up, and Wang Ling couldn't help but sigh at the changes. This dimension with all sorts of chaos and disregard for rules and order shouldn't exist in the first place. But he still hadn't found out who the mastermind behind it was. Why are there still teachers working? From 1 to 5, students have a break. Naturally, there will be teachers working overtime to prepare lessons for Saturday and Sunday. Wang Ling couldn't help muttering to himself when he heard this. Being a teacher in this world was a little too miserable. Even though 996 in the real world was inhumane, it was nothing compared to this place. As Wang Ling had thought, Mother Wan's cooking skills were normal in the Palace of Mirrors. The dishes she made didn't look as good as they did in the real world, but at the very least, they were non-toxic. This feeling. Mother Wan mused, my vision of this world was just my guess until I saw you today. Only now did I truly confirm my thoughts. Sometimes, I've always wondered what kind of me I would be like if there was another me in another world. Then how did you discover it at the very beginning? Guoping hadn't expected things to suddenly progress so quickly. Now that the topic had been brought up, he hurriedly pressed on. When I was very young, there were a lot of strange buildings in this world, which you've probably already seen. They're called dream houses. One day, these buildings that attract souls of the dead blossomed all over the place like bamboo shoots after a rain. Since then, more and more black shadow men have appeared in this world. The existence of dream houses makes the natives of this world gradually forget themselves. Saying this, Mother One held out her hand. This is the mark of the dream house, which I paid a huge price to forge in order to continue surviving in this world. As long as I have this, my memories won't be assimilated. So, the world of the Palace of Mirrors was invaded? Guoping was astonished. Hearing this, everyone else was equally horrified. They never expected this to be a meticulous plot that had taken decades. Yes. Mother One nodded. But it was a dream that reminded me of this at the very beginning. It seemed that I was dreaming of myself in another world. The me in that other world was a little old and a little chubby. Wang Ling raised his head with a curious expression. It seems that you know the me in that other world. Mother One smiled. It was a very special dream. She told me a lot of things, but a large part of the reason why we were able to form this dream connection was because she was courting death. Tsinghua 1 Chinese. Com omega 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 chi 4 all 1 z. Co omega, courting death? That's right. I heard that she was inventing a new dish, and even tried it herself and almost poisoned herself to death. Chapter 1001. In the Palace of Mirrors, Shanghai City, Fang Xing was being held captive in an underground research institute whose coordinates were unknown. There was a powerful restriction array set up in the underground research institute, and Fang Xing couldn't do anything here at all. His spirit energy was suppressed, and it was as if this underground research institute had been specially built for him. However, Bai Yuquan, who had brought him here, didn't slight him. The room in the research institute was European style, which Fang Xing liked. Although it was underground, it had huge floor-to-ceiling windows, which could be easily adjusted to suit one's preferences. Tonight, Fang Xing's dinner was a kuan steak, which was made from the fleshy part of the prehistoric kuan's belly, which had been cut and carefully cooked. The drink was blood wine brewed from Cheongchi's blood, which had a strong strawberry flavor, a sign of authentic Cheongchi blood. Although Fang Xing had never tasted food cooked from these prehistoric vicious beasts before, he had more or less read about them in ancient books. But these delicacies didn't improve Fang Xing's mood. On the contrary, they made his expression even more solemn. The strength of the person behind the scenes was already far beyond his imagination. Just using these vicious beasts, which had already gone extinct in the modern world, to cook was already breathtaking. He was being held captive in one of the rooms in the research institute. While he was thinking, the broken, high-tech door in the room slowly opened. What's wrong, classmate Fang? You don't seem to be in a good mood. Your father has been resurrected in this world, you should be happy. Bai Yuquan smiled and then clapped his hands. A thin man with waist-length white hair and delicate features was pushed to the front by two black figures. He was dressed in a long white robe, and his neck was covered with shining scales. Dad? Fang Xing was excited. But the expression of the man in front of him didn't change in the slightest. He looked at Fang Xing as if he were looking at a stranger. After your father was resurrected, his memories changed. He didn't even see you being born. He only knew that his son was an egg. He had no impression of you at all. So even if you've been resurrected, you're just a passerby to my son. Bai Yuquan sneered and said telepathically, but thanks to your father's research results, our research is finally beginning to bear fruit. I won't take your father away from here after the celebration banquet tonight. Now, I'll give you two some touching time together as father and son. As soon as Bai Youquan's voice fell, he left with his black shadow subordinates. He was very confident in his plan. Even if they were related by blood, he wasn't afraid at all. How much could blood relations be worth? Wasn't it like his father by just weightlifting with a dumbbell? For a very long time, the room was silent. True immortal Shipai found a seat and sat down. His posture was dignified and he looked obedient. Fang Xing had never seen his father's true appearance. Most of what he knew was from history books, which were basically just portraits. He compared some famous people, such as Zhu Yuanzhang, who had a shoehorn face. He never thought that his father would be so good-looking. He was afraid that the artist who drew his father's portrait was not an abstract painter. However, in terms of appearance, his father was indeed much lighter than he had imagined after his resurrection. His current appearance should be what his father looked like when he was young. "Dad." Fang Xing called out tentatively. Next to him, true immortal Shipai had a frightened expression on his face. "Young man, don't randomly call someone your father." "Fang Xing, but, you really are my father." "Didn't you hear what that person said just now?" True immortal Shipai's face flushed. "Don't try to fool me. I'm not married, how could I have a son?" As Bai Yuquan said, after true immortal Shipai's memory had been tampered with, he had almost no impression of Fang Xing, let alone that he had ever laid an egg. "You really don't remember anything?" Fang Xing said patiently. "You gave birth to a male ball back then. That male ball was me." Male ball, actually, a man's ball meant laying eggs, but it sounded better to say that it was a boy's ball. It was just that Fang Xing hadn't expected his father's expression to change at these words. "Young man, what kind of joke is this? I'm a man, how can I give birth to a child? How can there be such a pervert in the world? You aren't mocking me, are you? I may look very delicate, but I'm indeed a man. I've researched so many cultivation scientific results, but I've never seen a spell that can make a man give birth." Fang Xing was silent. He had no idea how to explain it at all. Because when his father, true immortal Shipai, had given birth to him, he indeed hadn't changed his body. To be exact, it had been an instinctive reaction to reproduce. The special immortal art they cultivated, the White Knight art, had a special ability in the first place. It was a magic art that could automatically back up cells in a life-threatening situation. Before death, the White Knight spell would preserve some of the elite cells and recombine them to develop in the body before finally forming an egg. In fact, it was a giant cell formed in the body after endless duplication and division. But it was very clear that true immortal Shipai didn't even remember the White Knight spell, perhaps because his memory had been tampered with. From true immortal Shipai's current point of view, Fang Xing was a strange young man who had casually acknowledged a father. So young, what a pity, he was a pervert. At this point, Fang Xing felt a headache coming on. This was a very difficult situation to deal with. First of all, memory tampering didn't mean amnesia. Before true immortal Shipai had been resurrected, Bai Yuquan had used some method to completely erase that part of his memory. In other words, true immortal Shipai had been resurrected without that part of his memory. Retrieving that part of his memory was much more complicated than amnesia. Fang Xing sighed. Staring at true immortal Shipai's face, all kinds of ideas flashing through his mind. He couldn't cast his spell under the effect of the restriction, so he had to think of a physical way to prove his relationship with true immortal Shipai. There was no other way. Fang Xing realized that now was the time to let go of the burden of being an idol. Facing true immortal Shipai, he opened his mouth wide, the corners of a snake's mouth. At most, he could open it 180 degrees. Fang Xing had never performed this skill in front of anyone before. But for his father, he decided to throw caution to the wind today. Chapter 1002. After his memories had been tampered with, immortal Shipai might have already forgotten the White Knight spell. But cultivating the snake form, the most basic part of the White Knight spell, was absolutely impossible to erase. This was the root of all the spells that immortal Shipai had developed. If even his memories of the snake form had been tampered with, then immortal Shipai wouldn't have the slightest bit of combat strength to speak of, which was something that Bai Yuquan absolutely didn't want to see. The reason why Fang Xing's mouth was so wide was because he had been cultivating the snake form since he was a child. How can you? Immortal Shipai stared at the youngster in front of him with a hint of astonishment in his eyes. The snake form was the foundation of all his spells, and generally speaking, outsiders wouldn't know about it. Immortal Shipai had also planned to pass this spell on to his descendants after he got married. Dad. I know you won't believe anything I say now. But I think that as long as you fight me, you'll definitely believe me, said Fang Xing. Fang Xing had been born with this memory of the snake form. When immortal Shipai had cloned his cells at the last moment of his life, he had also passed on this memory of the spell to Fang Xing. The snake form, the White Knight spell, and immortal mode had all been completed by immortal Shipai the moment he had spat out the egg. It could be said that these were things that Fang Xing had inherited in his bones, and no one could imitate them. At the same time, this was also the best proof of their relationship as father and son. There's an extremely strong restriction in your room. How are we going to fight? Immortal Shipai began to doubt Fang Xing's words. It's very simple, we'll fight with words. Fang Xing thought for a bit, then stared at Immortal Shipai with a solemn expression. Dad, I'm going to attack, Immortal Shipai. Right after that, Fang Xing flexed his lips. The instant I said I was going to attack, my left leg suddenly hooked at your lower abdomen. It's the divine snake tail whip, and my leg instantly split into several phantoms that the naked eye can't catch, making it hard to tell which one is real and which is fake. So it was this fight with words. True immortal Shipai finally understood Fang Xing's intention, and he immediately continued, but what you didn't expect was that when you lashed out with your left leg, your right leg would become your biggest weakness. I used the snake shadow perplexing track and quickly circled around to your back. Then, I used both of my legs to firmly entangle your right leg. Not only did I make your attack miss, but I also restrained you under my exquisite body technique. I'll open my claws and grab at the top of your head. Fang Xing, father's reaction speed and physical skills are indeed unprecedented and frightening. However, this kind of body technique restriction was like a clay ox entering the sea for someone who had been practicing the serpentine form since he was young. It was not difficult for him to dissolve it. I raised my hands and caught father's hands. Then, I loosened my body and shed my skin on the spot. In an instant, I was several body lengths away from father. Molting. You can actually molt. True immortal Shipai had an incredulous expression on his face. The various combat techniques of this youngster in front of him were strangely similar to his own. It could almost be said that they had been cast from the same mold. At this point in the fight, Fang Xing was already certain that his father, true immortal Shipai, was already suspicious of his true identity. His memories had been tampered with, and Bai Yuquan had forcibly turned him into a lackey researcher for the Black Shadow organization. However, Fang Xing always believed that his father would never give in like this. Back then, this was a man who had mastered all kinds of core technology. Even if the Black Shadow army had tampered with his memories, Fang Xing believed that as long as his father was willing, he would definitely be able to restore his memories. After his resurrection, true immortal Shipai indeed didn't have a son. However, Fang Xing's behavior was strikingly similar to his own. True immortal Shipai had indeed started to have some doubts about himself. What was his name? Where did he come from? Where did he go after death? What was at the end of the universe? Who was it who had killed him? And who was he? All these doubts and questions made immortal Shipai fall into silence. At the same time, Wang Ling and the others had also made a breakthrough in their investigation. Mother Wan led Wang Ling and the others to the staff dormitory where she lived. She had a single room, and was the only one in it. She took out a world map from a drawer. When Wang Ming and Guo Ping saw it, they looked at each other and smiled. Miss Wan, we already have this map of yours. We used high-precision equipment to scan it, and it's probably more accurate than yours. Mother Wan smiled profoundly. Then do you know about the 5 great altars? Guo Ping was dumbfounded by this question. The 5 great altars? No wonder you couldn't find it. That place is surrounded by layers of barriers, and you couldn't find it unless you saw it with your own eyes. Otherwise, there was no way you could have scanned it with any equipment. The invaders behind this world aren't that stupid, said Mother Wan. Then, Miss Wan, where did you get that map? Dog 2 asked from the ground. When I was young, someone gave it to me. He predicted that this map would be the key to saving the two worlds. To save the two worlds, we must first take down the 5 great altars. Who is that person? I don't know, but I'm sure that this person didn't come from this world. After he told me, he disappeared like a ray of light. This person was wearing a gray cloak, as if he had come from an endless period of time. When he shook hands with me, I could even feel the bone-piercing coldness from his body. Is this person also a soul of the dead? Wang Ming asked. Absolutely not. Mother Wan shook her head. It's impossible for a dead soul to have such a clear consciousness. It was as if he could see into the future. Everything I know was told to me by him, and he also told me about the reason why the Black Shadow Army was absorbing the souls of the other worlds. The Palace of Mirrors was originally constructed from the 5 elements. The 5 elements complement each other, forming a balance of yin and yang. The real world is the yang side, and our world is the yin side. Thus, there's no place more suitable than the Palace of Mirrors to absorb souls of the dead. After the Black Shadow Army arrived, they built the Dream Room and took control of the altars that maintain the stability of the Palace of Mirrors. Their ultimate goal was to complete the 5 elements soul transfer array and completely merge the yin and yang worlds into one. When that time comes, yin and yang will be indistinguishable, and the universe will be chaotic. The only result of the merging of the two worlds is destruction. The souls of the dead here have no desires, and are like puppets. Once the two worlds merge, this mentality will inevitably affect even more people. What will happen? Wang Ming's expression was solemn. A large number of people will go on strike, and the global economy will come to a standstill. Celebrities won't go on Twitter or Weibo because they can't be bothered to create hype. Game streamers won't care about winning or losing, and won't even bother to use cheats. In the end, they might just stop live streaming altogether. Restaurants won't operate because no one is willing to cook, and people can only eat snacks and frozen food. When the time comes, there might even be a food crisis for drinking water and fasting pills. Wang Ling's expression changed when he heard this. According to Mother Wan, the people of the entire world would be affected by the souls of the dead when the two worlds merged, and they would enter a salted fish mode. Once the world's remaining snacks and frozen food were used up, no one would be willing to continue producing them. Then, what about his crispy noodle snacks? No. He absolutely couldn't let that happen. Chapter 1003. It wasn't just Wang Ling who was caught off guard by the sudden attack of a Black Shadow Army with an unknown power backing it. In fact, everyone was caught off guard. For Wang Ling, the strangest thing about this was that he hadn't received any warning before this happened, and his eyelids hadn't even twitched. He vaguely felt that this was a little unusual. But he had already decided to get to the bottom of this matter, and couldn't let it drag on like this any longer. Wang Ming and Guo Ping split up the work. Using the map Mother Wan had given them, they completed the map of the Palace of Mirrors, and then displayed it in a holographic projection in the air. The 5 great altars were located in 5 different locations on the map, and if they were connected, they could form a perfect circle. Wang Ming stared at the map for a while, then started to make marks on it. It had to be said that Wang Ming's intuition was quite keen, and the moment these marks appeared on the map, everyone's eyes immediately lit up. These are the marked locations of all the dream rooms in the Palace of Mirrors. Connect these dream rooms in the form of endpoints, and then combine them with the 5 great altars outside. Don't you think this looks like an ancient array? As he explained, Wang Ming began to try different arrangements of the endpoints on the map. I got it. At that moment, Guo Ping's expression shook. He connected some of the dream rooms, and then said resolutely, "If you connect the dots here, here, and here, don't you think the talisman characters on them are very similar to the ones at the entrance to the Palace of Mirrors? Although we haven't completely deciphered them yet, we can indeed prove that your guess is correct, Teacher Wang." What a bunch of crazy guys. Wang Ming sked. To enclose an entire world in an array, such a bold and crazy idea was enough to prove the strength of the person behind it. And now, the most direct way for them to do so was to liberate the altars in the Palace of Mirrors that had been invaded by the Black Shadow Army. The Palace of Mirrors was the complete opposite of the real world outside, but the 5 great altars were unique to the Palace of Mirrors. In Wang Ling's world, the nomological laws of the 5 elements were reduced to nothingness. They were like cell molecules that had been broken down and dissolved in spirit chi that could be extracted. However, the 5 elemental laws in the Palace of Mirrors were the exact opposite. The existence of the 5 altars caused the 5 elements to condense into something substantial. Following Mother Wan's directions, Wang Ling and the others rode Dog 2 forward. Now that Dog 2 could turn into a giant, it could move extremely fast. Sitting on Dog 2 the whole way, they gradually deepened their understanding of the world through Mother Wan. But Face didn't mind being used as a mount. Instead, it really enjoyed the feeling of little Master Ling sitting on it. When they were in the Wang family's small villa, being able to be touched by his young master had become an extravagant wish. For Butt Face, being ridden was a sign that he had gained his master's trust. It made him feel extremely honored. Dog 2 carried Wang Ling and the others all the way south. They were now headed for an altar of water in the south. On the way, Dog 2 did its best to keep its body from shaking so that Wang Ling could sit more comfortably on the road. The only fly in the ointment was that Wang Ling hadn't given it a collar or a cushion yet, otherwise it would have looked even cooler. Later, I'll go to the demon world and look for my good friend Little Chicken. Not only is a cushion made from Little Chicken's feathers soft and comfortable, it can also prevent static electricity, Dog 2 interrupted as they moved. Guoping hadn't been very clear about Dog 2's situation at first. But now that they were confirmed to be part of the group, Wang Ming explained a lot about what had happened on the way. After learning Dog 2's true identity, Guoping was deeply shaken. Who could have thought that the all-powerful Demon King Sky-Swallowing Toad, which had mobilized all of Huaxiao Nation's immortal arts mobile force 6 years ago, would actually fall to this level? A Grand Demon King has actually been reduced to a mount just like that. Guoping sighed. Professor Gua, you're wrong. What do you mean reduced to a mount? I'm willing to become a mount. There's a big difference between being reduced to a mount and becoming one. Being reduced to a mount is a sign of abandoning oneself, but becoming one is different. Becoming one is an honor. Professor Gua should also feel honored to be able to ride on my back. If it wasn't for little Master Ling's face, do you think you could have done it yourself? Guoping pursed his lips, and in the end realized that he had nothing to say in response. Then, according to you, Little Chicken is also a demon king? Why didn't you mention it the last time you returned to the demon world? Wang Ming asked. When I returned to the demon world, Little Chicken actually helped me a lot in secret. But Little Chicken has always been very timid. He just doesn't dare show his face easily. Especially recently, there have been so many, Chicken, you're too beautiful, ghost animals everywhere in the real world, which makes Little Chicken lose a lot of face. A while ago, I even heard that Little Chicken's Chicken King clan was about to shut themselves up. Then is Little Chicken male or female? Male, but without a comb. Why? A few years ago, Little Chicken played mahjong with someone. The person on the other side was first-generation Demon Saint, but Little Chicken didn't know any better. First-generation Demon Saint was one chicken card away from winning, and it refused to feed it no matter what. Later, first-generation Demon Saint grabbed its comb and cut it off. Later, first-generation Demon Saint used this incident to curb gambling in the demon world. Don't say that a small gamble is good for the mood and a big one is bad for the body. Gambling is gambling. If you win, you want to win again. If you lose, you want to turn the tables. There's no end to this. What a deep lesson, of course. Dog 2 said, after Little Chicken was punished back then, there was a popular saying in the demon world, "Don't gamble, or your crown will fall." Everyone, in fact, he had to admit that Wang Ling did indeed have a magic power that couldn't be clearly explained with words. Guo Ping had known this from the first time he had met Wang Ling. Wang Ling had a very cold temperament and was a man of few words. But there was a magic about him that people really wanted to get close to and understand. Thinking this, Guo Ping couldn't help glancing at Wang Ling. He didn't feel the slightest bit nervous. On the way, while they were in full swing, Wang Ling acted as if nothing had happened. Was he really not nervous about how things were developing, or was this a sign that he had a card up his sleeve? Guo Ping didn't know. It was just that his curiosity about Wang Ling was growing stronger. The daily life of an immortal king. Chapter 1004. As Dog 2 ran like crazy, Wang Ling and the others got closer and closer to the altar of water in the south. The structure of the world of the Palace of Mirrors was actually very simple, but the invasion of the Black Shadow Army had forcibly complicated it. Wang Ling and the others stopped near the altar of water and stealthily approached it. Seizing the altar was the current method of regaining sovereignty over the world. When the Five Elements altar resumed its operation, the Black Shadow Army that had invaded this world would be forcibly sent back to their original world by the power of the nomological laws of the Palace of Mirrors, and the souls of the dead who had been stranded in this world would return to their original world to rest in peace. There were also some innocent people who had been killed by the Black Shadow Army and turned into the world of the Palace of Mirrors. The nomological laws of the Palace of Mirrors would create new bodies for these people, and then strip them of their memories of this world before sending them back to their original world. The nomological laws of the world of the Palace of Mirrors were a kind of order in itself. When order was out of balance, it would descend into chaos. When order returned, everything would return to its original state. In the real world, Gu Xuanji's role was to maintain the order of the universe. But he obviously couldn't predict the world of the Palace of Mirrors. This was a special world that was caught in a crevice. And such a special world would usually only open under special circumstances. So there was a new problem in front of Wang Ling now. If the mastermind behind the invasion of the Black Shadow Army wasn't the master of this world, then who was the real master who had created the Palace of Mirrors? Every altar had its own body. An altar wasn't a simple magic array, and its structure was much more complicated than that. There were 3 elements that made up an altar. 1. A physical object that matched the nature of the altar and had a great deal of spirituality. Taking the water altar as an example, it was very likely that the water altar was a river or a lake. 2. A sacrificial object of the same nature used to construct the altar. Sacrificial objects were usually magic artifacts with a great deal of ancient power. Most of these magic artifacts were antiques that had already lost their original effects, but could be used as offerings. For example, the Holy Thunder Pill in Wang Ling's possession was a holy relic passed down from generation to generation of the Thunder clan, and was actually the perfect sacrificial object for the altar. Finally, the third and most inhumane element, the altar emissary. The altar emissary was a person who was sacrificed in the altar like a sacrificial object. Their attributes were compatible with the altar, so they were probably chosen after careful selection. After becoming an emissary guarding the altar, they would obtain the altar's power and become an immortal existence. However, they would lose their freedom forever. The existence of the altar was like a cage to the guardian emissaries. They were imprisoned within the altar, unable to see the light of day. In the ancient cultivation world, all kinds of elemental altars were usually used to arrange the protection of cities. Ancient cultivators used the power of the altars to protect their own land. However, with the development of modern cultivation civilization, the altar became an inhumane forbidden technique. A few hundred years ago in the modern world, there were also cultivators who conducted research on upgrading altars. The third alternative after upgrading altars were artificial puppets. However, these soulless puppets were dead objects after all. They could not exert even a tenth of the power of a living person. After their power was greatly reduced, the arrangement of altars naturally became obsolete. Later on, with the unfolding of the cultivation modernization, the erotic altar was also included in the cultivator convention, becoming a forbidden law that was explicitly forbidden. Wang Ling had heard old Antique talk about this history in class before, but it wasn't a test point, and was just a special expansion of modern cultivation history. Old Antique's experience was much more extensive than anyone could imagine. He could be said to be erudite and knowledgeable, and could almost be described as omniscient. Wang Ling still remembered that class vividly, because old Antique had caught him eating crispy noodle snacks on the sly in that class and confiscated them. As everyone expected, there was a marsh in front of them, surrounded by a sea of tall reeds. The field of vision was so bad that an adult could be completely submerged in it. What a strong aura. Dog 2 stopped in front of the sea of reeds, its eyebrows tightly furrowed, and the fur on its body naturally stood on end. This was a natural sense of danger in its beast form, and it was a foretaste of the hidden danger in the sea of reeds. This is the altar of water. I came here to explore it before, and I almost got trapped in the sea of reeds. I almost got trapped in the sea of reeds and couldn't get out. Mother Wan shivered as she said this. You weren't discovered? Dog 2 was astonished. The Black Shadow Army has never laid a hand on the indigenous people of this world. Being an indigenous person is equivalent to being exempt from death. I pretended to have amnesia and mistakenly entered this place. After I was discovered, they sent me out, said Mother Wan. Although Mother Wan's cooking skills were a little weaker in the Palace of Mirrors, her realm wasn't low, and she was at the late nascent soul stage. However, it was very dangerous for her to get close to the altar. The reason why the Black Shadow Army hadn't silenced her was probably because they were well aware that the indigenous people of this world would gradually lose their sense of self. Don't worry, let me and Old Gua take a look first. They hid behind a rock. Wang Ming stretched out his index finger, and the mechanical cover on it slowly opened. Several mechanical flies then flew out and scuttled directly into the sea of reeds. This was a small reconnaissance drone in the shape of a fly, and Dog 2 swallowed when it saw it. It had already been a long time since it had eaten a large fly. It really missed it. Just as Guo Ping was analyzing the map scanned by the drone, an ear-piercing sound suddenly rang out in Wang Ming's and Guo Ping's earphones, and they felt dizzy and their ears ringing. What's going on? Asked Dog 2. The drone has been intercepted. Not a single one of the 29 flies was left. Guo Ping brought up the image of the last fly drone before it disappeared. A small, muddy hand stretched out from the swamp on the ground and directly dragged the drone into it before swallowing it up. It looks like crossing this sea of reeds won't be as easy as we thought. Dog 2's heart trembled when he saw this image. It looked like the sea of reeds had already been completely under the enemy's control. This type of area of effect spell was very tricky, because you couldn't immediately find the caster, while the other party could immediately monitor your position. Once you were dragged into the swamp, you probably wouldn't be able to break free with your strength alone. The nature of a swamp was that the more you struggled, the deeper you sank. Let's go. Wang Ling stood up. At that moment, Wang Ling got up and walked in the direction of the sea of reeds. Then, an incredible miracle happened. As Wang Ling moved forward, a passageway opened up in the swamp below him. The Great Sea Division spell was one of Wang Ling's passive heavenly Dao. Chapter 1005. On the other side, the Office of Strategic Deception's attack went even more smoothly than expected after Book of Sage Immortal joined the fray. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal used the royal armament, which Odd Zhua had obtained from the birthday gift box to perfectly suppress the fake duo. But at the same time, the imposters were also very stubborn and refused to say a single word until now. There's no other way. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal shook his scepter and frowned deeply. Guards, torture him. True Monarch, are we really going to torture him? Isn't that too inhumane? In that moment, it was as if Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had been possessed by Lord Bao. These two imposters are so stubborn and mischievous, they must be punished severely. Someone come. Take off his purple gold crown and his dragon robe. Perfected immortal, our sect doesn't seem to have a dragon head chopper. Who said anything about a dragon head guillotine? Grenade-throwing senior immortal tapped his magic staff. Men. Put on their headphones and play irascible Dharmaraja's songs. Tie him in front of the screen and play the basketball video 10,000 times. How cruel. The crowd couldn't help but sigh. Listen to this, is this even human speech? Sigh, I wonder if the two of them will be able to endure such torture. In Wang Ling's bedroom in the Wang family's small villa, Audiobook couldn't help sighing ruefully in his heart when he saw the image transmitted by Book of Sage Immortal. But now that things had come to this, it was impossible for him to plead for the two impostors. Sympathy for the enemy was cruelty to himself. According to my analysis, there is a 32% chance that the two impostors will surrender under such torture and confess the truth. Book of Sage Immortal said, however, there is also a 68% chance that the two of them will choose to surrender after teacher Wang Jiao joins. Senior Wang? Didn't they return home? Mr. Wang has indeed returned home. However, the purpose of his return this time is not just to pay respects to his ancestors. Book of Sage Immortal did not continue after saying that. But Audiobook could sense something from Book of Sage Immortal's words. Although Audiobook didn't know what on earth Father Wang was up to, he could clearly sense that something was off. Master's family is indeed not ordinary, as Book of Sage Immortal said, Father Wang had indeed returned home. The Wang family's ancestral home was in the Sea Village, which actually wasn't far from Songhai City. The Sea Village was close to the sea, and the most abundant resources were the fish and the local sea salt oranges. There was an orange farm where Old Man Wang lived, and the old man usually took care of it himself when he was around. But this time, Old Man Wang stayed in the Wang family's small villa for a longer period of time, so the manor was outsourced. For Old Man Wang, his retirement life was still relatively comfortable and leisurely. His children all had their own jobs, and their lives were smooth. He also had grandchildren to hold. As an old man, he had almost no regrets. The only regret was that Old Man Wang had no company in his old age. Wang Ling's grandmother had passed away early, before he was born. Wang Ling had only heard about his grandmother and grandfather's love story from his father at home. He didn't know if it was exaggerated, but he felt that his grandparents were definitely role models for young people. Judging from grandfather Wang and teacher Pan's previous relationship, the old man had definitely been a Casanova when he was young, and it could be said that he had seen countless women. But in the end, Old Man Wang had still chosen the person he loved the most, and that person was his grandmother. Wang Ling had always been very curious about his grandmother since he was young. But in the end, his understanding of his grandmother was limited. Not asking about the affairs of the elders was the most basic courtesy a junior should have, so Wang Ling wouldn't go out of his way to search for information about his grandmother. Old Man Wang was the tyrant of the Sea Village. The tyrant here did not refer to how overbearing Old Man Wang was normally, but to how well-liked he was and how well-respected he was in the village. When he was young, Old Man Wang had been the Sea Village's secretary for immortals, and the immortal records was the village's #1 position. Old Man Wang's realm wasn't high, and he had relied entirely on his popularity to hold this position. But it turned out that choosing Old Man Wang was indeed a wise decision. During Old Man Wang's reign, the Sea Village had relied on the various sea salt oranges he had developed to open up markets in various cities. Taking advantage of their geographical advantage, the sea salt oranges exported by the Sea Village were very sweet and big, and were very popular in the cultivation fruit and vegetable market. So, how popular were the sea salt oranges exported by the Sea Village all those years ago? Back then, as long as they saw a Sea Village orange vendor, all kinds of people would even risk being hit by the immortal sword high-speed train to cross the platform to buy the oranges. To this day, the sea salt oranges exported by the Sea Village still occupied a very large market share, and the Sea Village was currently one of the top 10 most prosperous villages in Huaxiu Nation. Later, after Old Man Wang retired, he devoted himself to cooking, which he had been most interested in when he was young, and had continuously developed new dishes over the years. Although he didn't have a wife to keep him company, he actually didn't feel lonely in the village. Next door, Second, Old Wu and Old Liang were both Old Man Wang's mahjong buddies, and when they had nothing to do, they would gather together to play mahjong. The reason why Old Man Wang had chosen to live in the Wang family's small villa was because he was very popular there. The only thing to blame was that the old ladies in the village had coveted Old Man Wang for too long. Every now and then, they would come to Old Man Wang's house to warm him up, which made him feel a little uncomfortable. At one point, the Sea Village had even held a blind date exclusive to Old Man Wang. Sheep dropped off Father Wang and the others 100 meters away from the village entrance before stopping. Father Wang was actually still skeptical about the blind date in the Sea Village. "Dad, is it really as exaggerated as you make it out to be? You haven't experienced it, of course you wouldn't understand." Old Man Wang was still a little fearful every time he mentioned the blind date the village had arranged for him. The point was that he couldn't lose his temper in front of the villagers. On one hand, this was everyone's good intentions, and on the other hand, his persona in the village was that of a benevolent person. How could he lose his temper? Furthermore, because of his personality, even if Old Man Wang got angry, it didn't look like he was getting angry, but more like he was acting coquettishly. After hiding in the Wang family's small villa for almost half a year this time, Old Man Wang was sure that the blind date the village had arranged for him should have died down a little, which was why he had dared come back with Father and Mother Wang leading the way. In the end, they had just come down 100 meters from the village entrance. Father and Mother Wang were just about to help the old man down when the village broadcast rang out. "Attention, comrades. Old Wang has returned to the village. He is 100 meters away from the village entrance. Let us welcome Old Wang back to the village." The loud voice echoed throughout the Sea Village. Old Man Wang was so scared that he almost fell off the tricycle. Chapter 1006. As it turned out, Old Man Wang was indeed an influential figure in the village. As soon as he appeared at the gate, his position was already completely exposed. The main reason was that the Sea Village was now too rich. There were surveillance cameras installed on all the main roads, and the Sea Village was also covered by the Divine Eye Project. Remote villages didn't have this kind of treatment. But as the wheels of modernization continued to move forward, sooner or later, even some remote small villages would be able to become completely wealthy. As soon as Old Man Wang returned, the whole village seemed to have become lively. Old ladies from various families came to the village entrance and beamed at Old Man Wang. Like Old Man Wang, some of them were widowed, while others were here to play matchmaker. The most exaggerated was that there was even an old lady who planned to introduce her daughter to Old Man Wang. "Yo, old Uncle Wang, you've been gone for so long, but why do you look younger?" The first person to stand at the village entrance was an old lady called Wang Dongmei. Everyone in the Sea Village had the surname Wang, and in ancient times, the Sea Village had been founded by an aristocratic Wang clan. Although the Wang clan had gradually declined, the culture of the Sea Village still existed. Nowadays, there were also villagers with different surnames in the Sea Village, such as the old man's two mahjong friends, Old Wu and Old Liang, who didn't have the surname Wang, but got along well with the villagers. However, the surname Wang was still the majority in the Sea Village. Seeing that someone was guarding him from afar before he even entered the village, and that the person was this Wang Dongmei, Old Man Wang instantly felt that he had lost the upper hand, and was no longer in the mood to lament about his hometown. Right now, Grandfather Wang felt like he was one of those young people who went on blind dates in the cultivation park. The only difference was that other people's blind dates were based on fate, while Grandfather Wang's blind dates were forced to be arranged by fate. "Uncle Wang, you're already so old, and your daughter-in-law lives so far away. Shouldn't your son and daughter-in-law be at ease if you find someone to take care of you?" Wang Dongmei took Grandfather Wang's hand and tried her best to persuade him, while Father and Mother Wang could only smile obsequiously on the side. In terms of seniority, they had to call Wang Dongmei Auntie. As juniors, they didn't dare act rashly in front of this old man. Although Auntie Wang was in charge of most of Elder Wang's blind dates, Auntie Wang didn't just treat Elder Wang. She treated everyone else as well. She lived like a central air conditioner. Not only did she live like an inextinguishable torch, but she also illuminated everyone else at the same time. "Auntie Wang, why don't we go in and talk?" Father Wang tried to smooth things over as he straightened Old Man Wang's body. It was obvious that Old Man Wang had been traumatized by Auntie Wang Dongmei back in the village. At the mention of a blind date, he couldn't even stand steadily. When the villagers found out that Old Man Wang had returned, they came out of their houses to welcome him. It was only a kilometer away from the entrance of the village to Old Man Wang's house, but hundreds of people of all ages and genders ran over to watch. "Uncle Wang wants to pass through, all of you make way. Don't block Uncle Wang's way." Auntie Wang Dongmei took the initiative to clear the way. "Whose family's brat is this? Hurry up and take him down to do his homework. Why are you joining in the fun? Have you finished your summer homework?" I'm done," a chubby kid in the crowd said weakly with a lollipop in his hand. Auntie Wang Dongmei looked at this brat with a smile on her face. "Yo, so it's Tiger Wang's fat tiger. Our fat tiger has always been good, he's never sloppy. Everyone, learn from Fat Tiger. Then I have to give him a reward." Thank you, Wang." Fat Tiger blushed at the praise, and just as he was about to thank Auntie Wang for the reward, Auntie Wang said directly, "Remember to come to my office later to get a copy of Summer Vacation Life as a reward." Fat Tiger was a little aggrieved. But I've already finished, Auntie Wang. Learn from the past, understand? Write a few more times. A good memory isn't as good as a bad pen." Then, Fat Tiger's cries came from the crowd. Seeing this, several villagers hurriedly carried Fat Tiger away. This act of killing a chicken to warn the monkeys directly frightened the brats who had been watching, and they all ran back home to hide. Father Wang and Mother Wang, Old Man Wang's residence had been arranged by the government when he had been a village cadre, and it had been renovated several times. When he wasn't around, someone would often clean the courtyard. Now that they hadn't lived in it for half a year, Father Wang and Mother Wang could see that it was covered in dust when they opened the door. Auntie Wang Dongmei frowned and directly threw out a spirit talisman to thoroughly wash the room. The talisman's foam dissolved in the air and washed away all the dust in the room, leaving only a faint and pleasant fragrance. Father Wang and Mother Wang helped the old man sit down in a bamboo chair. On the other side, Auntie Wang Dongmei had people disperse the onlookers, and then she directly made tea in Old Man Wang's house without any regard for herself as an outsider. Since Uncle Wang has brought his son and daughter-in-law back this time, let's be frank. Father Wang and Mother Wang, Auntie Wang sipped her tea and smiled. "Uncle Wang, apart from completing my work perfectly in the last half a year, I've also found a lot of partners for you. Some are young and some are old. The young ones are inexperienced but sensible. The older ones may look old, but they're very meticulous when it comes to taking care of you. You see." Auntie Wang, at that moment, Father Wang coughed. "Auntie Wang, go ahead." Father Wang, "It's like this, Auntie Wang, my dad and I are here this time to pay respects to our ancestors, and also to visit our mom. Isn't it inappropriate to arrange a blind date for my dad now? Also, my dad actually doesn't have this intention." "How do you know Uncle Wang doesn't have this intention?" Auntie Wang wasn't happy. "Uncle Wang is the pillar of our village. As long as he's here, the Sea Village will prosper. As a junior, you'd better watch your words. We're all hoping that Uncle Wang will have a second child." Father Wang and Mother Wang, but after saying this, Auntie Wang felt that her words did indeed sound a little harsh, so she said in a gentle tone, "Actually, I understand Uncle Wang's feelings, but Auntie Wang is already gone, and the dead can't be brought back to life. We still hope that Uncle Wang can get over this trauma as soon as possible. Since Uncle Wang isn't in the mood now, we can talk about it later." Considering that she was still in someone else's house and that the Wang family was paying respects to their ancestors at this critical juncture, forcing her to go on a blind date would indeed be forcing her against her will. Wang Dongmei had an idea and settled for the next best thing. Throughout the process, Old Man Wang's eyebrows were tightly furrowed as he stared at Father Wang with a pleading look in his eyes. Father and son were connected by heart. Father Wang already understood in his heart. It wasn't easy for him to make a trip to the countryside. This time, he indeed had to think of a way to solve the problem of his dad going on a blind date, otherwise, the old man might not even be in the mood to pay respects to his ancestors. But in terms of fighting strength, this Auntie Wang indeed didn't come with good intentions and was hard to deal with. What should he do? He didn't have any fans here to support him. Father Wang suddenly felt a little anxious. Chapter 1007. Just as Father Wang had said, Aunt Wang wasn't an easy character to deal with. It seemed that Aunt Wang had backed down this time because of the ancestral worship ceremony and the couple's presence. Once they went back, Old Man Wang would probably have to continue being bombarded by Aunt Wang's blind dates alone. Of course, this was all Aunt Wang's wishful thinking, but the root cause of this problem was that most of the villagers were dependent on Old Man Wang. Back then, Old Man Wang had single-handedly led the Sea village from poverty to prosperity, which gave the villagers a sense of worship like a big brother. It was also this sense of worship that made the villagers feel the importance of Old Man Wang as a pillar. But a pillar would grow old one day. After leaving the Sea village, Father Wang had lived in the city. Although he had bought a suburban villa to settle down in for his writing, he still hadn't given the villagers a sense of security. In fact, Father Wang felt that the Sea village's villagers lacked too much self-confidence. Under Auntie Wang Dongmei's leadership, the development of the Sea village in the last 2 years hadn't slowed down at all. However, Old Man Wang's existence was like a tranquilizer, giving people a feeling of comfort. Auntie Wang, my father has been on the road all day and is very tired. How about we wait until after the ancestral worship? Father Wang knew that if Wang Dongmei continued to stay here, his father might not even be able to eat dinner. As a veteran, Auntie Wang Dongmei naturally understood Father Wang's intention to send her away. She took out a booklet from her chest pocket and put it on the table, still smiling. Uncle Wang, I know you're not in the mood right now, but it doesn't matter. Keep this booklet. Later, if you're interested, you can flip through it. If you find anything you like, take a photo and send it to me, and I'll arrange for a girl to drop by right away. You're going to drop by? Father Wang asked. Wang Dongmei, of course. Uncle Wang is an honorable person, I can't just let him go by himself, can I? Let me tell you, Uncle Wang is still young. The main thing is that Uncle Wang doesn't want to take youth-retaining pills. Actually, a lot of men are taking them now, so I don't think it's a big deal. Otherwise, if Uncle Wang were to return to his youthful appearance, he would definitely kill a lot of fresh meat. I'll keep one youth-retaining pill for you, Uncle Wang. Father Wang and Mother Wang, Auntie Wang's face was like a peach blossom as she spoke. Before she left, she began to talk non-stop. Also, Uncle Wang, take a good look at the photos in the booklet. There were also photos of them when they were young. If Uncle Wang takes a fancy to their youthful appearance, I can also contribute my age-halting pills to them. Father Wang and Mother Wang, Auntie Wang continued to talk for about 5 or 6 minutes before she finally left happily. Old Man Wang sat in the armchair, paralyzed, as if life had lost its meaning. He let out an extremely bitter sigh. It was as if he had seen the lousy ending of the 8th season of the Game of Thrones, and his eyes were filled with despair. Tisk, Auntie Wang really knows how to make use of every opportunity. Father Wang complained, then flipped through the matchmaking booklet. Father Wang's jaw dropped when he saw all the photos. F***K. Auntie Wang's preparations are pretty detailed. Father Wang was startled. There were all kinds of styles in this matchmaking booklet. There was even a black girl, an outstanding graduate of Mishio Nation's Shrimp Buddha Cultivation Academy, Agalia Madi. Majored in the Applied Engineering Department of Spirit Sword and Airflow Technology, and has a 5-star Michelin chef certificate, even her 3 measurements. Father Wang was stupefied. This foreigner's profile could already be described as impeccable, but Father Wang couldn't understand why such an outstanding student would appear in the matchmaking brochure. Dad, what do you think this group of people are after? Because you're old, and because you don't bathe? Old man Wang, that's Su Daqiang. I bathe every day. Father Wang teased, I'm just joking, Dad. I've looked at it, the profile is pretty good. Your charm is still as attractive as it was back then. At this point, Mother Wang also covered her mouth and snickered. Both husband and wife were well aware that Old Man Wang had been known as a Casanova back then. Old Man Wang, Dad, don't sigh. Father Wang hurriedly grasped Old Man Wang's hand. You're from Qingxua, Ba. The pillar of the sea village. Old Man Wang rolled his eyes and then straightened up. What do you know, then what do you think about this, Dad? Mother Wang also sat down and asked in a soft voice. An elderly person's opinion was always the most important. On the surface, it seemed that Old Man Wang indeed didn't have any desire to find a new partner, but there was a very small chance that it was because of other factors. For example, Old Man Wang himself had some misgivings. Dad, if you really want to find a new partner, you actually don't have to worry about me. I've been thinking about finding a stepmother to take care of you for a while, and that's pretty good. To be honest, there are times when I'm worried about you living in the sea village. Ling Ling finally cured your dementia after much difficulty. Who knows if you'll get yourself killed playing mahjong with Uncle Wu and the others. Those two are very cunning. Father Wang whispered in Old Man Wang's ear. Isn't it because of your mother that I have dementia? Grandfather Wang rolled his eyes and poked Father Wang's forehead. You heartless thing, your mother was the best to you when she was alive. You're still thinking about finding me a stepmother. Io. Father Wang pretended to cry out in pain, and then laughed. Of course I know how good my mother was to me, so I've never been absent from the ancestral worship every year. Of course, I also know how you feel about her, but the problem is that there are so many people staring at you now. If you really don't want to, it's best if you give them a quick death so they won't have any more thoughts. There was a hint of melancholy on Old Man Wang's face. Sometimes, people only understand how precious something is when it's gone. To be honest, when your mother was still around, she always despised me, blamed me, and nagged at me. Now that she's gone, my heart feels empty. Her voice keeps ringing in my ears. I can't forget her, and I can't let her go. I've also thought about finding someone to keep me company, but I always feel that your mother's soul is still by my side, as if she hasn't left. Father Wang felt tears welling up in his eyes. But he didn't want the atmosphere to be too heavy, so he wiped his tears and forced a smile. Are you saying that my mother's soul lingers on? Old Man Wang rolled his eyes again. But this time, there was a pa sound, and the crisp sound of a slap suddenly rang out in the air. The surroundings fell into silence. There was a 5-fingered handprint on the left side of Father Wang's face. This familiar touch, Father Wang broke out in a cold sweat on the spot. Holy shit. Mom. You're really here. Mom. If you're here, please hit me again, Mom. Pa. Then, there was another handprint on the right side of Father Wang's face. And then, there was nothing else. Old Man Wang hugged Father Wang, father and son shivering in their chairs. Father Wang now finally understood why Old Man Wang was so resistant to finding a wife. This was a man. The most genuine desire to live. You're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.